Happy Hump Day, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Our show today and every day is brought to you by our friends over at Big Willie's, 1717 South Main. If you're looking for a spot to have your holiday party, maybe you're a business owner, maybe you just really enjoy the company of your coworkers and you want to make sure that for Thanksgiving, for Friendsgiving, for Hanukkah, for Christmas, for Kwanzaa, for Diwali, whatever it's for, that you get everyone together. Big Willie's is a great spot. Great option for you. They've got the pool tables recently refinished. They've got multiple televisions all over the place. They've got an excellent food menu, which we'll be diving into further today as they brought us the hot lunch. And, of course, they've got cold beers on draft, rare bourbons, common bourbons, craft cocktails, anything you need for your adult libations or even your everyday average regular soft drinks. Check them out at 1717 South Main. All right. College football playoff rankings. They're out. And they have sent a message. The committee who did their very theatrical, I don't know if you saw this yesterday, as they were walking into their deliberation room, they were all wearing college football playoff committee hats. They took them off and they hung them on the door, or on like a hat rack, a coat rack. And I guess when they came out of the door, they put them back on. Whatever strange symbolism is involved in that, I have no idea. But from a conversation standpoint, they gave us more than we could ever ask for. The message being sent right now to the College Football Playoff Committee, or sent by the College Football Playoff Committee to the University of Utah, is if you keep winning the way that you have, you are in the college football playoff. Let me say it again, Utah football fans. For all of my whining and complaining about SEC biases and the Big Ten gets too much credit, and why are they treating the ACC so well? The College Football Playoff Committee, the adults in the room, so to speak, the powers that be, when we refer to powers that be in college football, it's these people. And the message that they have sent to you, the Utah football fan, to Kyle Whittingham and his staff, and most importantly to the players on this team, the message they have sent is, we think you are just on the outside looking in right now. Keep winning the way you do, and there is a definitive path to the college football playoff in 2025. And by the way, I don't think that playoff, that spot in the playoffs, is only accessible if you make it to and win the Big 12 Conference Championship game. Because the message that was sent to the Big 12 is, hey, we respect what you're doing right now, guys. And the message being sent to the ACC is, you guys stink. This is completely opposite of what I thought we were going to see. And I am overjoyed for once at being wrong. College football playoff rankings, which of course render the AP Top 25 and the coaches poll effectively moot. Ohio State 1, Indiana 2. Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss 3 through 6. BYU, Texas Tech 7 and 8. Oregon 9, Notre Dame 10, Texas 11, Oklahoma 12, Utah 13, Virginia, Louisville, Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, and then Miami at 18. Now, who has the opportunity to overtake you? You know what? That's the wrong place to start. Rewind here on the Sean O'Connell Show. By the way, 877-353-0700. Just tell me your overarching feelings about this college football playoff poll. I know that it is just a conversation point. I know that movement will happen. I know that there are going to be upsets. I know that everything shakes itself out, and at the end of the season, the final college football playoff poll is the one that matters. But do you watch cooking shows? James Peterson behind the glass today. Do you watch cooking shows on television? Do you ever like Great British Bake Off is the one that my wife likes the best? You ever watch Iron Chef or Guys Grocery Games or anything like that?
I don't watch a ton of them, but the Great British Baking Show is one that I've watched with my wife quite a bit.
It's very wholesome.
It's a delightful.
It's delightful, happy, wholesome content. It's great.
So much different than if that was made in America, it would be. Oh, Hell's Kitchen's another one I've watched.
Okay,
but I haven't caught up with current seasons, but I've watched that.
Yeah.
I do like Hell's Kitchen, but
Hell's Kitchen on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, but like Hell's Kitchen is the American production where it's like with ironically a British lead.
That's right. Yeah.
In Chef Ramsay, but like it's like very dramatic. It's what you're talking about, theatrical. We're gonna put our hats on the. If the college football playoff show was produced by English people, British people, they would have just been like, here's the list. Here you go. Here you go. You know what? We like these. We like all of these teams.
The reason I bring up that question: do you watch cooking shows? If you do, you like the suspense. You like the drama unnecessarily, right? Yeah. Because,
like I say, especially the American productions.
Cooking shows should just be, look how delicious this dish is. Here's how you make it. But that's not what cooking shows are, right? You show like look at this.
Did this person cook it better?
Oh, his cake's not had enough time to proof in the proofing oven. Will he make it to the deadline? And all of us are just like, ooh, I wonder. I'll wait through the commercials for this one. And we're that way with college football, all right? The suspense and how the sausage is made, we want to know all of it. College football is our cooking show in the sports fan world. And these polls, these playoff rankings, these projected brackets, as I'm looking at one on the television in front of me right now, because the Pat McAfee show is going through things the same exact way that we are. What it shows you, what it tells you is like, hey, we want to know. We want to see the suspense. Now, we are going to have a Big 12 championship game, which right now, if the season ended, would be BYU versus Texas Tech. The loser of that one, I think the committee told us we still think highly of both of these teams. Again, right now, if everything continues at or near this pace, we're going to put 2 Big 12 teams in, okay? That's if the season ended today. If the season ended today, Utah's not in.
I think that's the season ended today. Why this week's rankings has both of them in is because you have an undefeated team and a one-loss team.
And by the way,
I don't know if that ends up being the case if you have one of those teams with 2 losses going into the Big 12 championship game and they win.
Well, here's the thing though. Those 1 and 2 loss teams and the undefeated BYU Cougars are looking up at an Ohio State, an Indiana, and a Texas A&M that kind of no matter what happens the rest of the way, you're not going to leapfrog those teams, in my opinion. Now,
Unless
guess
somehow
A&M,
they lose 3
A&M,
games, but that's not happening.
A&M could lose to a ranked Missouri team. Probably not. They've got South Carolina. They're not going to lose that game. They're not going to lose against Samford. And then they're on the road at Texas to finish the year. So
it's a rivalry game, and Texas is good, so they could lose that one.
1 of 4, maybe they lose those. But even if they do, right, if Texas A&M drops one to Texas, doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're getting the at-large.
They're in, okay? So right now, the committee has told us they've sent some messages here, and one of the things they've sent to the SEC is you're going to get 6 teams in the playoff. Like, Ohio State, Indiana, they're in. Almost nothing can happen to get both of those teams out. Maybe one of those teams could fall out, but it would have to be complete madness and insanity, okay? Ohio State and Indiana are going to be in. Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, they have tough games, but, well, I'll just go through what everyone's got, okay? So, Ohio State, number 1 in the country right now, deservedly so. They've got Purdue, UCLA, Rutgers, and Michigan. there's no shot that they end up worse than a one-loss team at the end of the year.
Yeah, that the rivalry game is the only one that they have a shot at losing.
And that's
hopefully they
a
don't.
long shot.
Hopefully they don't lose that game again. I can't do 5 in a row. OC.
Indiana, Penn State, a hapless, helpless Penn State, Wisconsin, Purdue. All right? Big Ten championship game, ostensibly, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, Oregon has some sway over what happens with Utah. Of course, the qualifier, and I don't think I really have to say it, the qualifier for Utah is you have to win the rest of your games. This conversation will be deleted and stricken from the record if Utah loses another game. All right?
Or it'll be on cold takes exposed or something.
Utah's been sent a message by this playoff committee. If you keep winning the way that you are, there is a path for you into the college football playoff, and it does not have to go through Arlington, people. I am telling you, they're sitting at 13, and it's not just as easy as, well, win again and you'll leapfrog up to 11, win again and you'll leapfrog up from 11 up to 10, and then from 10 up to 9, and then you're in. I know that there's a more complicated arithmetic to this, but the message is loud and it is clear. And so you have to look at, well, what can happen and what potentially will happen around Utah that will, if they control their part of the equation, that can and potentially will push them out as a 10-2 team. And look, it's a big ask to be 10-2. Baylor's not terrible. Kansas State is bipolar, and you don't want, I don't know if you want the Dr. Jekyll or the Mr. Hyde, but the other one, whichever one you don't want, can hurt you. Kansas, same thing, right? They're very winnable games. They're games you should win if you play the way you've been playing. They're games that I think Utah does win because that's just the way things go. And to elevate the drama of this season, you could ask for nothing better. But what can happen around them? Well, Ohio State and Indiana, I think, are going to hold serve, which means their opponents, Purdue, is kind of like hanging around. Michigan's hanging around. I don't think you have to worry about those teams leapfrogging you. Okay, thank you, Ohio State and Indiana. Appreciate that. Oregon's
interesting.
Iowa, USC, and Washington. Okay?
Tough end of the schedule. All 3 ranks in this week's rankings.
This is where things can get. So if Iowa beats Oregon, now suddenly, as a Utah fan, you're contending with both Iowa and Oregon for that popular opinion that college football playoff committee saying, like, oh, well, what is the Oregon resume? What's the Iowa resume? Again, this is.
And the Big Ten, by the way, you're contending against that conference.
This is not even factoring in a potential conference championship game because I haven't seen what the tiebreakers are in the Big Ten, right? So if Iowa beats Oregon, now instead of just worrying about the Hawkeyes climbing, you also have to worry about Oregon because, well, people are going to say, well, it's Oregon. And
the brand. Yeah.
They're a big brand, and they have a little wiggle room here, and Iowa beats them. Okay, well, now Iowa's like 15 and Oregon's 12 or vice versa. You know what I mean? So now you're like, oh, crap. Now we're up against the Big Ten and one of the biggest brands that got added to the Big Ten, and Iowa, for what it's worth, is kind of like a heritage brand for some people.
I think if it comes down to Utah and Iowa, I feel pretty I'm not as nervous about that. If it comes down to Utah and Oregon, I'd be nervous.
If it's Utah versus Oregon from like a, hey, who do we believe in more? Then they're going to say Oregon.
And the quiet part is what TV show do we like more? We like Oregon on the TV show.
Now, okay. Same thing. You need.
You don't
Oregon.
have that with Iowa.
You have, as a Utah fan, you have to become painfully a BYU fan. You have to painfully, in some people's minds, not so much for me, but you have to root hard for Oregon here. You want them to beat Iowa and keep Iowa down. You want them to beat USC and keep USC down. Washington, I don't think is that much of a threat, but
they only have 1 loss though.
To keep them out of the worry, you got to root for Oregon to beat Washington and keep Washington down, okay?
Yeah.
Now, Alabama, these are the teams above Utah, right? Oregon's one of those teams Now you're talking about SEC teams that I think are going to be in. Bama has LSU, Oklahoma, Auburn.
Oklahoma is going to be a tough game. The other two, probably not as much.
You hope not, right? Oklahoma is right above Utah right now. You actually need Oklahoma to fall out of this equation, and Bama is the best culprit for helping that along the way, right? Yeah. Georgia, Mississippi State, Texas, Charlotte, Georgia Tech. They're not going to lose to Mississippi State. Texas, we'll see. Charlotte is that late season SEC gimme game. Georgia Tech, we have talked about Georgia Tech various weeks of this season so far. Paper Tigers, they took their first loss. They were punished heavily in the rankings, including these college football playoff rankings because of it. The whole ACC kind of had to bite that bullet because Georgia Tech couldn't hold serve. Will the playoff committee do the same thing to the Big 12 if BYU loses to Texas Tech? I think where Texas Tech is at would suggest no, but we'll see.
I think maybe sneakily one of the best things for Utah and, the chances for the Big 12 to get a third team in, hopefully the Utes would be that third team, is Georgia Tech winning the ACC and Virginia and Louisville getting knocked out of the race, which would tell you that Georgia game has no consequence for that because that's obviously a non-conference game.
If Georgia Tech can win the ACC, it solves some of these
or I suppose
fake, made up, why am I worrying about this 4 weeks before the end of the season type problems. You're absolutely the ACC. The message sent to the Big 12 was, hey, we actually like you guys. The message sent to the ACC was, we don't like you at all.
Yeah. Even though they have more teams in the top 25, they're lower than all of the teams in the Big 12.
And look, beneath you, if you're Utah, you have Virginia. From a branding standpoint, you probably don't have to worry too much about Virginia. Virginia is going to be results-based. Yeah. What they have is Wake Forest, Duke, Virginia Tech. Those are all very, very winnable games for Virginia. So,
and then they maybe have Louisville, a rematch with Louisville or Georgia Tech in the ACC championship.
Louisville has Cal, Clemson, SMU, Kentucky, and obviously Kentucky is not a conference game. So Clemson and SMU are both losable games for Louisville. They should win those games, but on the road at SMU, that's a tough one. That's on the road. So Louisville scares me a little bit less. Vanderbilt. Utah fans become Vanderbilt haters, okay? Because Vandy has Auburn, Kentucky, and a ranked Tennessee, at least for now, ranked Tennessee team on the road to finish their season.
Go back to New Mexico, Pavia.
And what you don't want is for Vanderbilt to continue being this like national darling. Oh, this is a great story. Look what the transfer portal has done. This is one of the best coaching stories in the program turnarounds and celebrities like Vanderbilt. And because remember, James, you already pointed this out. This is a television show. The college football playoff tournament is a television show. It is a ratings-driven, brand-driven. Yes, we'll allow you in, Boise State, if you force us to, like you did last year.
SMU last year,
you
same
made
thing.
us do it. We'll let you have your place at the table because you checked all the boxes, but we don't really want you here. And they were all smiling and clapping when Ohio State, the football program of the country right now, rose to the top and won the championship. Every single one of them was like,
why shouldn't they be smiling and laughing?
Okay,
don't
do it.
Go Bucks.
Now,
let's go.
So Vanderbilt, I don't like the lurking of Vanderbilt because of how much publicity and how much
we're very anti-Diego Pavia on this show. We want to put that out there.
Just the influence of the SEC, and the SEC is kind of like if they get 6 teams in, they gobble up half the field. Champ gets in, right?
Champ and 5 others.
Champ, Ole Miss. I don't think you're going to be the champ. You're getting in because again, Lane Kiffin is a ratings guy,
and they're good team too. They deserve it.
Like let's say Georgia wins.
Two losses, maybe.
Let's say Georgia ends up winning it, right? Is someone really going to call Kalen DeBoer and say, "No, you're not making it in. Alabama's not in"?
Well, they now some of the at least one of the teams, Tennessee. I'm looking at you, is a fraudulent top 25 team in my opinion, but Alabama has the most wins over currently ranked opponents in the nation. So they've also just been a juggernaut besides that first game of the season against FSU.
Alabama is not falling out of the college football. They're a one-loss Alabama,
but they've earned
team.
They've earned it so far too.
They've lost only to Florida State, which remember what people were doing when that happened? Kalen DeBoer, get him out.
It
was the wrong guy. He sucks. And then it was 73-0, and then they beat Wisconsin, and then it was Georgia, Vandy, Missouri, Tennessee. That was,
I guess, 4 weeks in a row is when they won when they beat all the currently ranked teams. Yeah, they have aside from that loss, if not for that loss, they'd have the best resume out of the field.
Alabama is the team that, based on what you see right here, even if they lost 2 of their last 4, people would be making a case for a 3-loss SEC team and it would be Alabama. Okay,
like they tried to do last year. Yeah,
I don't think they're going to lose 2 of their last 4. All right, so Alabama's in, Ohio State's in, Indiana's in, Texas A&M is in. They can't fall far enough as an undefeated 8-0 team, in my opinion. Georgia's probably in because they're Georgia, and because I think they're going to beat one of Texas or Georgia Tech. If they lose to both of those teams, obviously,
going to be in question.
Then they're probably out, because that would give them 3 losses and fewer of those big ranked wins than Alabama. But again, they're Georgia, so are people really going to tell them that?
How great would it be if that isn't that is that old-fashioned clean hate? Is that
clean old-fashioned hate?
Clean old-fashioned hate is the Georgia Tech Georgia rivalry nickname.
Was for a playoff spot?
How great would that be if Texas beats Georgia, and that ends up being even if Georgia Tech holds serve and Georgia is fighting for their playoff lives in that rivalry game, it would be incredible theater.
So we're now up to 6 teams that are in, guys. When I say Ole Miss ain't going to lose, they're 8-1 right now. They're not going to lose to the Citadel, Florida, or Mississippi State.
I watch out for the Citadel.
They're not. So Ole Miss is in, and now you've got half a field to put together. And by the way, the ACC champ automatically gets in. The at-large bid, the highest ranked group of 5, which in this first one was Memphis. They put Memphis in.
Memphis is in, and right now it's is it Virginia that's in for the ACC?
Virginia that's in for the ACC.
So that's 2 more.
Okay, so now you're down to 4 spots.
Yeah.
And look, Utah's right there, hovering right there. Okay.
Obviously, but one other Big 12 team's in.
Hold on. If things keep going the way they've been going, the loser of the Big 12 championship game, if it was this one that was played, if it was Texas Tech and BYU that was played, the loser probably gets in.
Yeah.
Right? So now there are 3 spots. And are you really going to look anyone in the face and say the Big Ten's only getting 2 teams into the playoff? Ohio State and Indiana? Wrong. Oregon is going to be in.
And now
Iowa, USC still have a potential to get in.
So you're fighting with Notre Dame possibly if Notre Dame wins out for that last spot?
So now we're looking at a situation where Notre Dame or Utah, or I guess an at-large like a Michigan who perhaps beats Ohio State.
Don't put that out there.
A USC.
Don't do that. I told you I can't do 5 in a row, OC.
A USC who somehow sneaks up and hands Iowa or Oregon a loss.
Stop fighting, USC.
They're now
fight off.
But here's the thing. If you go 42-10 against Baylor, if you go 35-14 against Kansas State, if you go
70-0,
if you go
against Kansas,
let's say you go, 42-35 against Kansas. We're not going to pretend
much too conservative.
We're not going to pretend it's all blowouts the rest of the way. Now you're talking about a team that is averaging 40 points a game and has one of the best defenses, the best scoring defenses in the country, and you're raising your hand, and whether the tiebreakers work out in your favor or not, whether you're in Arlington for a Big 12 championship game or not, you're fighting, you're elbowing with Notre Dame, potentially, with
one of the other ACC.
One of the other, an ACC runner-up, right? And with a Big Ten fourth team.
Yeah. And you know, you can
or with Vanderbilt, if Vanderbilt looks better than we think.
The seventh team out of the SEC? Goodness gracious. No, and you know what you can say to Notre Dame and to the committee? Hey, our resume includes good wins, not just good losses.
I think Texas is going to get pushed out of this conversation. That's my hope.
Yeah, that's another one that especially if they beat Georgia, Texas enters the chat.
Well, and in that case, the College Football Playoff Committee is going to do that thing like this has probably happened to all of us at some point where you apply for a job that you're really excited about. You try to get on like a reality television show maybe, and
you don't know anything about that one.
You got called back a couple of times. They're like, hey, your interview went really, really well here. I'm gonna pass you up to my supervisor.
Our focus group thinks you're hot.
They're gonna interview you also, right? You're like, oh, cool. Yeah. And then you interview with now you're talking about like the assistant to the regional manager, and then the assistant to the regional manager is like, hey, we really like you. You got one final interview. And in that final interview, you kill it. You knock it out of the park. And you're just like, this is great. I feel very confident I'm going to get this job. And they go, we really, really like you. But here's the thing. We have someone applying for this same job that we've also done 3 interviews with. And they are you, but with a degree from Harvard. And you're just like, oh, come on.
And maybe
they're you.
And maybe 10 to 15 years younger.
They're you, but with 7 years of experience already in this level of role. You're like, dang it. But guys.
That would be Texas.
Like, that's Texas or that's Oklahoma.
Or if Georgia falls out
of
it.
Whoa. You can't hire them. You already have 7 people. Well, in this case, 6. That would be the 7th person with a Harvard degree that you're hiring in your company. And
don't you want any diversity? Don't you want someone with the University of Utah degree?
They're like, yeah, no, we get that. We understand that. But that is a winning formula for us.
Yeah.
That's what you've got to as a Utah fan.
Are you rooting for Georgia in that Georgia-Texas game? You got to be, right?
Yeah,
and Texas A&M against Texas.
Look, the people that are in front of you right now, including BYU and Texas Tech, you're rooting for them.
Yeah.
You don't
want them falling.
You don't want them falling.
Unless they completely collapse, then you're like, fine, that's great.
Great, but that's need BYU to lose 3 of their final 4 games in order for them to go all the way down past you in the court of public opinion and in the Big 12 standings? That's not going to happen.
Yeah, not going to happen. They
Texas Tech
got a tough schedule, but it's not. They're a good team. You
can win a tiebreaker against Texas Tech, as we talked about yesterday, if Arizona State continues to win. Yep. But now you're relying on Texas Tech sucking and Arizona State being better than they're probably capable of being with a backup quarterback the rest of the way, even though Sims should get credit. He rushed for a school record, like 300 yards in their last game.
Impressive road win over Iowa State, for sure.
He had a great game, but again, relying on what you can control is more important here. And what you can control is winning these final 3 games. And then you as a Utah fan got to get out the voodoo dolls. You got to do the superstition stuff.
Do we need to bring another casket to a remote?
I don't think so.
Is that what we need to do?
No more caskets. And you have to look at these rankings and you have to say, all right, if you're in front of us for now, anyone not named Texas and Oklahoma, I want you to stay in front of us.
Yeah.
Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, have fun, do your thing. Even to the chagrin and pain of your ancestors. BYU, swallow it down, swallow the bile, throw up a little bit in your mouth, choke it back down and say, BYU, I want you guys to finish the season really well, okay? Give them their credit and then say, Texas Tech, I kind of don't care. Oregon, you got to beat Iowa. You got to beat USC. Oregon, you got to hold serve. Notre Dame, Texas, and Oklahoma, I can wish evil upon you because you know that one spot is going to the group of 5 team, one spot's going to an ACC champ, and you're sitting at 13 right now, but you really have to leapfrog up 6 spots to be in the conversation to stay.
I feel like you're big Georgia fans, too, if you're a Utah football fan, because Georgia plays Texas and Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech could be one of those teams that you could be going up, you could be putting your resume up against for an at-large bid.
Yeah.
And you need Georgia Tech to lose at least one more time.
Miami, you should be hating on Miami. I don't think they're that dangerous, but they are Miami. And they got Syracuse, NC State, Virginia Tech.
You need Louisville to lose one more time at least,
and
too.
Then Pitt.
Be comfortable.
So you have to support the committee's hate for the ACC and hope that even in wins, their best teams look mediocre.
You really only want one impressive ACC team because no matter what, the ACC is getting one team. So you want carnage in the ACC so that there's only one or two loss ACC team.
And Spence did a good job of elucidating this yesterday on his program right after we were off air. But, the television ratings thing does matter, especially when you get beyond the automatic bids and you get beyond, let's be honest, you get beyond the real national championship contenders, which are those kind of top 6 that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And, you might put Texas Tech in that conversation. Most people don't put BYU in that conversation because of the freshman quarterback thing.
If they stay undefeated and win the Big 12, though, they will be in that conversation.
Most people don't put Utah in that conversation. Most people, by the way, don't put Oklahoma or Notre Dame or Texas in that conversation, right? So when you're talking about everyone that's beyond the automatic qualifiers, whether they will admit it or not, there is some calculus done on what kind of television ratings are we going to get here, and that's where being in the Big 12 sucks for you because the ACC can raise their hand or go through the back channels and say, before you go into the committee room, before you debate this one final time, look at the top viewed games in college football this year and tell me how many of those included ACC teams. And more importantly, for my ACC point and my ACC interest, tell me how many of those games had a Big 12 participant in them. The ACC is part of that conversation. The Big 12 is not.
Yeah.
That is where things get ugly, potentially, for Utah and for the Big 12. But, Brett Yormark, do your wheeling, do your dealing, all right? If you need to bribe, barter, blackmail, get 3 damn teams into this thing.
You need to ask someone if they have an X-ray poker table, whatever.
The ACC has left an opening for you, and the committee has acknowledged that opening and said in their initial rankings, and maybe they're just doing it to dangle a carrot to keep Big 12 country engaged in the conversation.
Yeah, maybe when it comes down to it, on the final rankings, it's like, yeah, we actually didn't really believe in you guys very much.
But
hopefully
the message
not.
Sent yesterday evening to the Big 12 and to the top 4 or 5 teams in the Big 12, with Utah being the third best right now, the third most impressive right now, the third highest ranked right now, the message sent was, there is a path for you to take that empty chair as an at-large bid. Will it be easy? No. Will you need a little bit of help? Unfortunately for Utah, yes. But the path is there. I didn't think we were going to come away with that conclusion. I thought I would be signing in this morning saying, Wednesday, Utah, you got no shot.
Yeah.
Wrong. I was dead wrong. Keep winning the way you're winning. You're in the college football playoff in 2025. Kyle Whittingham rides off into the sunset, accomplishing the final goal in his I need to check this box. I got to make a college football playoff. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, well, see, when you asked the poll question yesterday, do you have any hope that Utah can be an at-large team in the college football playoff? My honest reaction was absolutely not. But then, with the help of our text line pointing out that, hey, like the 3 or more team tie rules are pretty wonky, and they could favor Utah. That helped. That brought a little bit of hope for Utah to get back in my mind. And then, yeah, the way the committee seems to really like Utah enough to say, hey, 13, man, you are in the conversation. There's some hope. Now, hopefully it's not Ted Lasso, the hope that kills you, but I think it's better to have hope than not at this time of year. So it's fun that Utah, despite their tough performance against Texas Tech and in the Holy War game, is still has a shot at making it. I would not have guessed that after the Holy War loss.
Go out, get your Navy apparel, get your Pittsburgh apparel, find somebody who was a Syracuse alum and borrow a jersey from them.
JP Chunga, give us a call.
Call Steve Tate and be like, hey, I'm a big Stanford guy in the final week of the season. Pull off the upset against Notre Dame. Because Notre Dame losing would be important for you as well. They have no conference championship game. They have no resume builders outside of Pitt on their slate. Man, how exciting. Even if it's the hope that kills you, isn't it special to actually have something to care about? Sean O'Connell Show continues on Utah's number one sports talk. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Today's hot lunch is the mac and cheese burger. Red and green peppers, mac and cheese, a slice of cheddar, perfectly grilled patty, onion bun, a little bit of lettuce, and you've got a mac and cheese burger with fries on the side, fry sauce. Go fry sauce, people. We're in Utah. Respect the culture, okay?
Hashtag.
Go to Big Willie's, tell him OC sent you. Goodness gracious. James, I'm going to have to split this one with you because it's a big old burger, and I'm not fresh off of too large of a breakfast.
I can help you out. I appreciate it. We're A little early on the hot lunch.
Yeah, we're doing it early because
That's all good.
Because look, I mean, I destroyed the clock already in the show. We did 35 minutes in the first segment. I was so amped up.
That's a good point.
I was so amped up about what's going on with the College Football Playoff Committee picking up the bat phone to Kyle Whittingham's office and saying, Coach Whitt, we know that this is probably your final year. We respect what you've done. And we have cleared a path for your team to get into the college football playoff, regardless of whatever tiebreaker.
They said, in our estimation, you're still in it.
See where you're at, 13. Oklahoma, they got a tough one in front of you. Texas as well. Those boys fall out. You're in, baby.
Georgia sneakily tough path too. Let's go.
I mean, the ACC being a one-bid league would be glorious if it could play out that way. South Florida or Memphis or Boise State or whoever is going to take some spot that you wish belonged to Utah. But you got to play by the rules. There's a lot of different ways that you can evaluate what's happening in these college football playoff rankings in the rest of this season. James Peterson put together a formula on ESPN700sports.com.
It's a very complicated mathematical formula. No, it's actually pretty simple. I'm not Andy Larson over here.
Okay. If you go to ESPN700sports.com, in the feature panel at the top of the page, next to like the picture of Jeff Schwartz and Alex Jensen, you'll find the trophy, the national championship trophy. And if you click that link, it's James Peterson's point system. 3 points for each win against a ranked opponent.
And
the qualifier is, where are they ranked now?
Yeah, so like I've hated this about college football for a long time. Like Clemson, Georgia Tech beat Clemson when Clemson was, the 21st ranked team in the country or whatever, week 3. Today, Georgia Tech is able to say, yeah, we beat a ranked team this year. No, you didn't. Clemson sucks.
You beat a team that was ranked because we were wrong.
Yeah,
in our preseason rankings.
So that's the
which, by the way,
that's what I mean by it has to matter what the College Football Playoff Committee thinks of your team right now.
This is why so many coaches and some athletic directors are against preseason rankings, like vehemently opposed to preseason rankings at all, because they do these completely fabricated, arbitrary, made-up numbers. They do influence opinion, consciously, subconsciously, whatever. Now, the College Football Playoff Committee should be adult enough, mature enough, informed enough to look at something like that as a good example and say, well, a Clemson win this year actually doesn't mean much.
Yeah, and I think that I trust that they do.
I think
it just bothers me that they don't come out and say that, hey, that actually doesn't count towards their resume.
I think that the poll they gave us yesterday indicates that absolutely it does.
Yeah.
Now, you can also, just to be fair here, because we occasionally get a little too crimson tinted with the goggles we're wearing, like Utah doesn't have any wins over currently ranked teams.
Right. So Utah beat, when their two most impressive wins in the season, they beat ASU. They were ranked at the time.
Yes.
They just beat Cincinnati. They were ranked. I kind of agree with the AP poll that they should still be in the 20s somewhere, and like team like Pitt probably shouldn't be in there, but that's neither here nor there. That the CFP committee has said we value that Tennessee and Pitt more than we value Cincinnati, so they don't count as ranked, as wins over ranked opponents for Utah.
I do need to say, because I am not a quality loss type advocate, I am not a proponent of the quality loss discussion, but that is one of the things that is keeping Utah where they're at right now, because the playoff committee does factor quality losses in, whether they admit it or not. And Utah being in a one-score game that a lot of people watched that. A lot of these people in the playoff committee watched BYU Utah and saw that, all right, these are very evenly matched teams. BYU gets the credit for a win over a good team, obviously, which is why they are in the top 10 where they belong. Utah is being credit that, like, if I'm going to be a man of principle, which I'm not, you can't say the best thing you've done is lose a close game to BYU.
Right.
You can't. You can't say, well, we hung for 3.5 quarters with Texas Tech. Doesn't matter. The eyeball test And that is a big thing for this committee also. Well, how good are you right now? And what they're doing, they're not only looking at wins and losses, although wins and losses are the easiest stat to read. They're looking at points per drive. They're looking at points per game. They're looking at opponent points per game. And they're seeing that when Utah does win, they demolish the competition.
Yeah.
One very close loss to what the committee has decided is a top 10 team is, in their metric, a quality loss, which I don't love using to bolster. But thankfully for Utah, they have more beyond that. Like BYU, conversely, if BYU is a 2-loss team by the end of the year, then the committee might look at it and say, wow, this BYU team, even in their wins,
not very dominant.
They were not super dominant. They were, they had some really good defensive numbers. They had okay offensive numbers and
had to come from behind multiple times. Utah, you don't have that. You can't say that about Utah about their wins. And all of their wins, it was basically wire-to-wire wins.
All of these things being equal, the committee has to start being really nitpicky about, like, well, how good are you when we actually watch you play? Are you consistently beating teams badly? Which, even when in Utah's best years, by the way, that's not really a characteristic of the team. They play a lot of close games.
Other than Euro 4 team.
That team
did that, but the other really good teams, it wasn't like that. So anyway, that's the first one. 3 points for wins against currently ranked opponents in the current AP poll. So I already used the opposite example. That Clemson win for Georgia Tech means nothing in this point system. But also the Louisville win, Virginia beating Louisville. Louisville was unranked at the time in the AP poll, but now they're top 15 team in the college football playoff poll. So that does count as a win over a ranked opponent because they're ranked now. So that's what that part means.
2 points for a win against bowl eligible opponents. So you're beating a quality opponent. 1 point for a win against opponents who have a 500 or better record, but are not ranked.
Which only matters like in the next couple weeks because by that, after the couple weeks now, it's like, are you bowl eligible or are you not?
Yeah.
Whether you have a winning record.
Minus 1 point for a loss, minus another point if your loss comes against an opponent with a losing record.
Yeah, what do you think about that one? I feel that's totally fair. If you have a terrible loss, you should be punished even more.
I think so. And I think that in a practical sense, that's something we see play out with the College Football Playoff Committee in a lot of cases. Now, Notre Dame, Northern Illinois would be an outlier that says different.
Notre Dame made it through anyway. Yeah.
But they're Notre Dame.
Yeah. So Texas is the best example of this year. They lost to Florida. So that counts as double. That counts double in my subtracting points.
Now, the thing I hope is not true, but I think is true, James, is that if you wanted this to be reflective of how the College Football Playoff Committee is going to evaluate things, and I hope I'm wrong, I think you might have to put in another, like, half point for being a brand.
I've thought about that. Maybe, like, you only get half a point for your wins against group of 5 teams that are bowl eligible.
Something like that. But I also think –
or whatever.
But, I mean, like – you start with a half point if you're Texas. You start with a half point if you're Notre Dame.
You get a bonus half a point.
You start with a half a point if you're Ohio State and Alabama and think that's
pretty logical. Yeah,
it sucks, and unfortunately there is no Big 12 team, Utah included, that gets that extra bonus half point.
Yeah, and to your point about ACC and ratings, they've got a couple that would get that
Clemson,
half a point.
Miami,
Florida State
probably when
they're good. So with all that, so all that clear as mud for you, OC. Like
I think it's actually pretty easy to follow.
Pretty logical.
So with that, your top 12 and you got to come up like we call them the CFP rankings. What is this?
This is our resume rankings. CFP
the JPR,
resume
the James Peterson, the JPR.
The JPR.
James Peterson resume, JPRR.
JPRR.
JPRR, the James Peterson resume rankings. You've got Memphis as 12.
And that's just because the format. You have to have a group of 5 team in, and that's who the committee is
Great.
deemed as the top group of 5 team.
Great. Okay, so they're 12. Tied at 10 is Notre Dame and Texas A&M.
Texas A&M, that's interesting, huh? They only have 4 points each in those resume rankings. So Notre Dame has the 1-ranked win over USC. They have a win over bowl-eligible team in Boise State, and then NC State has a winning record at this point. And they have 2 losses, so that adds up to 6 points. Texas A&M, they beat Notre Dame, and their only other resume builder is that they beat LSU, who right now has a winning record. They may not by the end of the season. They may lose that point. They may win another game and become bowl eligible and lock that extra point in. So Texas A&M, even though 3 in the CFP and 3 top 5 in the AP poll for the last month or so, pretty low in this point system.
So Virginia has 5 points in this.
Yeah, that shocked me too. Louisville rising up into the rankings really helps them there. But they also have 3 teams who have winning records right now. Wins over those teams: Coastal Carolina, Cal, and Florida State is 500. So and the way that their season's been going, they might end up being a losing team, gets knocked off their resume. We'll see. We'll see about Coastal Carolina and Cal. But yeah, the Louisville's rise really helps Virginia, because otherwise they don't have much to speak of on their resume. Gives them an extra point though ahead of Notre Dame and Texas A&M. That one was the Texas A&M being so low and Virginia being so high. I would have thought it would have been flipped. The other ones, the next few you would expect: Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Georgia, BYU 5th right now, and then Louisville, surprisingly too.
Louisville's got 7 points in your metric because of the wins against ranked opponents. They've got Miami. And Pitt, and win against bowl eligible opponent. They've got to win over James Madison.
Yeah. Now, listen, this is where I say I'm not making a judgment as to what teams should be ranked or not. I don't think Pitt should necessarily be ranked, but the committee says that they are, so they get credit for that, right?
Which is fine, because we have to live in the reality where this committee, they are the thought makers and the thought shapers. So
if they were following this point system, which they're not going to, I wouldn't expect them to, Louisville would easily be an at-large team at this point, which is a surprise. And
then tied for second, Bama and Ohio State. Indiana is the number 1 team with 12 points. They've got wins against Oregon and Iowa. They've beaten Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Illinois, who are all bowl eligible.
Yeah.
And
so if they had gone straight off of what the AP poll was this week, Iowa would not be ranked, and Ohio State would have your best resume. But that kind of gave Indiana an extra point there. So Indiana, based on this system, best team in the country. I'm not saying that that's how we should evaluate it. I'm just saying if you did this kind of point system, I think is a decent way of looking at what the team's resumes are. Indiana would have the best resume in the country, which is very interesting.
Interestingly enough, Oregon, who is in the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings, I think very firmly in the driver's seat.
Yeah, not in
as of right now
12.
On this system, they got nothing. They've got no win. They got no points. They got a point.
They actually have 0 points officially, because their loss cancels out. Let me go to my other spreadsheet I've made here. Their best win is against Northwestern. They're not bowl eligible yet, so their winning record. So they 1 point for that, and then they lost to Indiana, so it canceled each other out. They don't have any points. So,
but
they've
with
got
what
a
they
great.
have left on the slate is Iowa, Minnesota, USC, Washington.
They'll be able to build that.
So they could stash
they get in the top 5,
points.
right? And then if they sweep that, Indiana or Ohio State stub their toe, maybe they end up in the Big Ten championship game. it could be a huge swing for Oregon at this
Which
point.
in that case, you're gonna have to assign a point value to conference championships.
Yeah, that I have not.
If you end up
factored
being a
that
conference
in, but
champion, it's got to be like 7 points
7 points. Yeah, touchdown for winning your conference.
because you automatically get in if you win the conference.
Yeah.
So your points kind of don't
All
matter.
right, your thoughts? Do you like? I mean, I appreciate the tweaks, the feedback, and some of the tweaks I can make. I have considered some of those.
I like it because one of the things that we get lazy on with college basketball and college football, there are so many systems, there are so many metrics, there are so many numbers that we can use that we're just like, oh, these are good. And to kind of look at it your own way and say, what do I think matters? If I was on the college football playoff committee or was shaping that conversation, how would I do it? I think it's something that you should, as a dedicated sports fan, as someone who works in the industry, you should be able to say, all right, I like what they do, but is there a way I can improve upon it? And I don't know if this is an improvement or not because this is the first time we've really seen it. And I guess, like Oregon's absence, I think Oregon, even though you look at their resume and you're just like, Oregon's like they haven't really proven a ton. A 10-point loss to Indiana is kind of like their best argument right now. But also, when you watch Oregon play football,
yeah,
and you're like, okay, that is an incredibly talented team that I think is going to project well against what is left on the slate. But it's still very much a prove it to me type prospect, and that's fine.
And I will acknowledge like the reason why I would not say this is how it should be evaluated is because this is not what I think watching the tape. This is not what I think looking at what talent they have and how they project against their future schedule. This is just plainly what have they proven, like
this
you said.
Hashtag James Peterson analytics.
Yeah, just prove it to me, James Peterson analytics. And right now, largely because like Oklahoma State, for example, was awful the last couple of years. That would have been a resume builder in most years for Oregon this year. They because of their schedule and because the one really good team that they face, they happen to lose. They don't show up here, but like you said, like they win out, they're going to show up on here. So,
all right. Hour 2 begins next. Trevor Riley set to join us. Talk about Utah coming off a dominant win against Cincinnati. The message being sent here by the College Football Playoff Committee and how you win this bye week. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome now, number 2 on the Sean O'Connell Show, and welcome in the Utah football legend, Trevor Riley. Trevor, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Utah and BYU are winning, and I'm looking forward to a hopeful matchup, so I'm kind of excited about that.
Well, there is that possibility. We were going through some tiebreakers and strange scenarios that could happen that would set up a Holy War Big 12 championship game. I want it, not only because it is a second bite at the Holy War apple in one season, but also as a Utah fan, you got to believe right now with the way that we've seen this team play that a second outing might go a little bit differently.
I agree, and I think that both teams are playing a brand of football that's fun to watch, and I'm excited to see our offensive line and our run game. I think that we're getting on track here with ball distribution, meaning I think one should be the top, toucher of the ball. And I think BYU is, their quarterback. I don't think we've seen something like what he's doing as a true freshman. It's pretty unprecedented. At least this west of the Mississippi, we haven't seen something like this in a long time, if ever.
I got to give you credit, Trevor. You've been saying, hey, give me more Wayshawn Parker. And, he had a 100-yard game against Cincinnati, and looks like he's really settling into the groove of you can't call him quite a bell cow back yet, but, I think the obvious first option when you're handing the ball off or you're getting a running back involved, it seems like he's pushed himself into that category.
He's an eraser, okay? A guy that can make a coach look great. You call this play and they have it stuffed, and he makes a guy miss and goes for 40. That type of ability is not easily, that's not a thing that's normal, right? You might have one or two guys on a roster, and some years you may not have one. When I was playing in Utah, we did not have a guy like that my junior and senior year. And sequentially, we went 5-7. He's the kind of guy that can win you a game, and he's not the only one. Ficklin, when he has the ball too now, he's making guys miss. He's got the little sidestep move, and obviously our quarterback 4, he's tremendous. So I'm happy the OC's kind of finding the groove, right? It's finding that groove here with this personnel, and it looks good. I like the way it looks.
We've been talking all year on some level about what about the wide receiver room? What about these wide receiving threats? And we keep asking for it to be somebody else. I think that may be a mistake that we've, disrespected Ryan Davis on accident a little bit, because you look at his numbers, he's the 4th most productive wide receiver in the conference. He's a guy that I know it'd be better if you had a 6'4" burner doing what he's doing, but he's had back-to-back 100-yard games now. He and Dev have incredible chemistry, and this is a dude that, whether he checks all the boxes or not, he's getting the job done. So I would love to see other options emerge, but in their absence, he's a guy that has been incredibly reliable for this team and is now starting to outpace some of his peers on other teams.
There's no doubt. You can't deny the stats in this regard. I think we ask a little too much of him based off of what he has to offer, and that's not a slight at him. It's just he is a guy who's, I think he's maximizing his potential. So I'm very happy with his production. I think our tight end room is doing really well too, and they really hooked us up during the season, or at the beginning of the season. The running backs are making it available for these quarterbacks to get one-on-one matchups, though. The running game in general is bringing that safety down in OC. You know what that means. That means we can take our shots. I think where I've been most disappointed is that when we've had those shot opportunities, right, they're few and far between with the completions. So we have explosive plays. They just seem to be hitting in the run game. And, again, if we're asking Davis to make explosive plays down the field, I don't necessarily think that's in his repertoire as, a high percentage. That's not a high percentage play for anybody, I don't think. That's all I would say about that, though.
This is where the criticism for Devin Dampier comes in, and I think some of it's fair because, he doesn't have the biggest arm, and some of those downfield throws, you're like, oh, what happened there? Now, to me, Cincinnati was a good example of this. The timing of it is a bigger problem, I think, than the zip on the ball or the strength of the arm. There's a lot of guys, and I think we saw this from Peyton Manning later in his career, not comparing the two, obviously, but when you start to lose kind of the physical tool, the physical ability to just bomb it downfield, you have to rely more on anticipation, on your knowledge of the playbook, your knowledge of the route tree, and the timing of the throw, Dev can get the ball through the air 40, 45 yards. You ask him more than that, and it's going to start to wobble, and it's going to start to die. There were 3 passes at least against Cincinnati that if he throws it earlier in the route, it meets the receiver at that mark, at that 40, 45 yards downfield. Instead, the throw comes out a little bit late, and now it's an underthrown ball. Now it's an interceptable ball, and now it's a ball that we are groaning about because we're looking at it. Not because it didn't fly far enough, but because it was thrown too late, in my opinion. How do you fix that from a coaching perspective?
Ball has to come out earlier. That's the obvious one, right? And you mentioned it. What he's doing is what we used to have a problem with Huntley early on in Andy's offense. He would wait when guys were open to throw the ball. And you can't do that necessarily all the time. Some offenses call for that, by the way. This offense, that ball needs to be out, especially with the play-action game, right? It's a rhythm. It's 1,002, ball is out. And if you hesitate on that ball, you said it, it's exponential now. Now that guy's running extra 5 yards or 4 yards, and the ball looks like it's dying. And we have to get that ball out quicker. Guys that can't throw the ball down the field, think Ty Detmer. Not a guy who could huck the ball 70 yards, right? But this guy can still get the ball downfield because his timing was impeccable. And in boxing, they say timing beats speed and power. Timing and speed beat power every time. So get the ball out on time, right? And don't hesitate. He, as Randy Cal once said, he who hesitates gets cracked.
Trevor Riley's our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking a little Utah football. Look, it's part of the job here in sports talk radio to overreact to every ranking and every metric and things like that. But the first college football playoff rankings came out, and Utah's sitting at 13, so just on the outside looking in with 3 games left to play, none of which are huge resume builders, but a bunch of teams with really tough games, very losable games right in front of the Utes. I think that the committee sent a message that if you dominate like you did against Cincinnati, if you dominate like you did against Arizona State, we're going to give you a very serious look as an at-large bid. Now, the hope is that you get into the conference championship game. You win that, you get the automatic qualifier. Nobody has to sweat it. But I think that this committee likes what the Big 12, especially the top teams in the Big 12, have to offer, and they've decided that Utah is one of those teams. Am I up in the night here? Am I too crimson-tinted with my glasses, Trevor? Because 13 with games left to play, and with Texas and Oklahoma right in front of you with a bunch of really tough tests on their slate, and Notre Dame with at least one, I'm looking at it and saying, man, there's a path here.
I think odds makers love Utah. I think we've been favored in every game, maybe for a couple years. And even though we were against BYU and they were on the road, right, and they're higher ranked, we're favored. That says something, right? That means we passed the eye test. And when you pass the eye test and the results meet that, that's a team where people want to watch. I think Arizona State kind of fell into that last year, where the running back and the quarterback, right? Those 2 guys really, and the receiver Tyson, those are 3 guys that passed the eye test, and they made the Final Four. I think that their season last year, ours could be reminiscent of that. I don't think you're too crimson tinged. We crush people. When our roster's better than everybody else's. When you're favored, that usually means your roster's better. So I think it's the stuff that's been costing us, like special teams and not throwing the ball. If we can solve a few of these small things, I think we're in it. I think we're going to win out, and then we're going to be 10-2. It's going to be hard not to keep us out. That's all I'm going to say about that. No matter what happens.
You're in the coaching world, and you know a lot of these guys, and the carousel is going to be spinning at record rate. It's already going. We've got 4 more games left to play. You got conference championship weekend after that. There are some teams, some big-time programs, whose lofty expectations are not going to be met by the end of the year. There's, 12 teams that have already decided that their coach wasn't good enough and have moved on. There's also the player movement that comes with coaching changes in the portal. How do you manage this? How do you process this if you're a fan? How do you process this if you're on a Utah football team right now, if you're on a BYU football team right now, where there is going to be some level of stability, but the entire world is spinning so fast around you, every coach in the land is going to be calling if you're a good player, and saying like, hey, I'm the new guy at LSU. You want to come play here? I mean, how hard is it going to be for these in-state teams to retain their rosters?
It's going to be really hard. Imagine this. What if Utah lost 4 or 5 guys to BYU next year? That's not inconceivable. And Sean, you and I have talked about the numbers. We're very aware of what could be. I just know that if you don't have money right now, you're in big trouble, because kids and agents both know the feds are coming. So there's going to be some movement here that this might be a crescendo year, as they say. And not to have too many, superlatives there, but really think about what I'm saying here. If you don't have a lot of cash and the market opens up, it's just basic economics. So I would say the way you manage it, mitigate risk, you got to find a way to fill the coffers. And then as far as coaches go, even with us, man, I maintain this. I think Coach Witt should win out here and then take a job somewhere. And I know that sounds outrageous, but him or Coach Scally, right? I don't know if Coach Witt's done. Right? I'm seeing some energy and these little reinvigoration here. And if you get some dollars behind him, right, I could see this guy really hitting the golden years maybe in his late 60s. I always thought he was better suited for pro coaching anyway. And OC, I think you know what I'm talking about. His demeanor more fits that style, right? He's less rah-rah, more results-based guy. So there's a lot to unpack there, but we need cash, right? And I think if we get cash, that'll help stabilize everything as far as coaches go. I'm shocked that Swan hasn't gotten a DC job. Not that he's wanted to leave. He has a nice gig in Morgan. But there's a couple guys on that staff who really, as we keep winning, they're sought after. Even Robert Blecken, he's, as a GM, there's going to be maybe some movement where guys get cherry-picked finally from us because we're showing how to win with no money. I mean, we're tied for last in Power 4 spending outside of revenue share. Last. So we're winning in spite of that right now, and we got to find a way to seize on the opportunities we got.
Because you brought it up, Colton Swan, for people who don't know, linebackers coach at the University of Utah, had a great resume at Weber State, was on some of those Jay Hill teams. He was actually the linebackers coach when I transferred up there. He's a really, really sharp guy. He's an excellent recruiter. He's an excellent talent evaluator and developer. He fits the Utah coaching staff mold very well. He's a cowboy up in Morgan County. Like, he drives down every morning at like 4 a.m. Yeah, he's a rodeo dude, right? I mean, he's as tough as nails. Great guy. And every school in the country would be lucky to have him. You look at another candidate in a guy like Sharif Shah, who's I gave him some credit yesterday on yesterday's show because, as the special teams coordinator under his watch, we've looked at in these recent years, like, hey, what's going on with our kick coverage? What's going on with some of these things? These last couple of games, they've really got it back. They've really got it dialed in. You're kicking every dang kickoff out of the end zone. You got a punt block 2 weeks ago. You got the punt return for a touchdown this past week. The one before that probably should have gone for a touchdown. So some really good things are happening. And Sharif is a phenomenal recruiter. If it plays out the way I think it's going to play out, and the way that, even if it played out the way you said, like maybe, Coach Witt moves on to some other position, I think he's going to retire, but whatever. It doesn't matter who's right here. If Morgan Scally is your head coach, is Sharif Shah your defensive coordinator? Is Colton Swan your defensive coordinator? Does Morgan call Jay Hill and say, I want you to come back and we'll pay you a little more than BYU's paying you? I mean, how do you think he distributes those duties when he's no longer the guy calling the defense?
Yeah. Well, I think Swan is as good as they come, right? Sharif, obviously, his record speaks for itself. And Sharif, as a human being, has a lot of accomplishments, done a lot of good stuff in the world. All those guys have been around. Lewis Powell might be the best recruiter west of Mississippi. So a lot of these guys have had opportunities, right? It's just such a good deal with Coach Witt at Utah. That's why the secrets are starting to come out. Like, these dudes are really winning right here, man, with no money. And that speaks volumes, dude. It says a lot about the roster management. It says a lot about Coach Witt, right? I'm sure he's getting that got into some people's butts there after that BYU game. You know that, OC. I'm sure that tune was changed over there on special teams, and Coach Witt probably went over there with all them coaches, and they wrangled those guys together. I think that at the end of the day, though, Scally's going to have to figure out, right, power, who's going to run the show. But one guy we're not talking about who definitely is on some head coach short list is the offensive coordinator. And he might be the first guy that gets a job offer. I mean, they're putting up how much they're top 15 in the country, right? And he's the supposed QB whisperer. we got a couple guys on this staff that are tremendous, and with Game Day and Fox coming and just all the recognition, if we can continue to win, I mean, BYU is now picked 7th, I think, in the playoff slotted, and if we can get in there, right, I think Morgan's going to have a heck of a time filling those positions because I think they're going to have opportunities.
Trevor Riley for just a couple more minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We're getting close to that time of year where you've got your primary signing day in high school football recruits coming up in December. The transfer portal window that did exist concurrently with that is now gone and has moved to a 10-day or 2-week window at the beginning of January. But these are all the things that factor into what we were just talking about. How do coaches and the coaches movement and coaches that have to make these decisions about their own futures manage the fact that you've got to put together a roster. You got to retain a roster as well. We're Lewis Powell, the best recruiter of the west of the Mississippi by your assertion, has 25 days to get these guys dialed in, signed, ready to go for a class that, may be coached by Kyle Whittingham, may not be coached by Kyle Whittingham. And you're doing it while you're trying to win these final 3 games and hopefully be part of the college football playoff or sneak your way into a Big 12 championship game in Arlington. You've lived this life, Trevor. That's why I'm asking you this question. How frenetic is the pace? How insane are these conversations? What are the hours like right now for these guys who are zeroing in on all of this at once?
So I'll give you a quick story. I'm at Colorado, and we're playing a team on the road, right? It's about this time. Could have been a little earlier, might have been October, but it was about this time, though. We're talking about December. So the day before the game, night before the game, a couple of street agents show up, right? We were talking about this one kid. Okay, so they're there to see the game. That they represent some other kids on the team. So this high school kid is from Southern California, and we're trying to negotiate a deal to sign. We want this kid. Big get for us. Okay, he was a lineman. So we put together this insane deal at the dinner table downstairs from the team hotel, right? And this is just like, we're so happy, and we just say, oh, yeah. Well, we lose the game, and then Monday the kid commits and signs with a different school. Took less money, too. So you ask about the hours. You don't sleep. The hours exist at all times, and sometimes we're recruiting international kids. Okay, so that's a whole other animal. You're literally working all hours of the night. NFL England or NFL London has a program over there. So all these coaches, right, as it gets closer, you can imagine, it turns into 16 to 18-hour work days and phone calls. The phone get passed between people, and then there's negotiations. And really the Robert Bleckett and his staff, right, this is where it gets nut-cutting time. And it's really, really just you're dealing with AAU basketball people. You understand, OC? You know these type of people. Imagine like fight agents, like these type of people. It's just kind of it's like a knife fight you hope you come out, but it just, there's a lot of lying, right? There's a lot of half-truths, and there's a lot of, there's just a lot of lying. It's just a lot. So, a lot of work, but a lot of deciphering through the lies. And so Utah has a pretty good reputation. They usually, if they say something, it's pretty solid. And you can ask around about that. They're pretty solid about that. So it's a fun time. This is probably the craziest time. After Halloween, things get crazy.
So the team has a bye, right? They'll practice today, and then they'll have the weekend off. And it's 3 incredibly important games after this. Now, they're all very winnable games, but they're not gimmies because no game in the Big 12 is. And Baylor, Kansas State, Kansas, they're as bipolar as they come. So Baylor's up first. You probably, correct me if I'm wrong, you have some connection, some awareness of Dave Aranda, who we all have some respect for here. How dangerous is Baylor?
Baylor is well coached. I was just talking to my brother about them yesterday. Baylor has the ability to play to the level of their competition. Remember Pat Hill at Fresno State?
Yes.
They used to come in there and hang in there with SC or beat a team and then lose to San Jose the next week. They're Fresno. And so Baylor is kind of like this, right? They have a militant-style head coach, and he's very disciplined. He's very serious. And so they have they're disciplined enough and they have enough ability, right? And when they put it together, they can hang with people. So they're someone to always be worried about. Kansas State used to have that reputation under Bill Snyder. Remember that?
Yes.
They used to show up and beat people, and then lose to freaking Kansas or something, or Texas. So they're one of those types. Okay, they would say that they're finding their way. Okay, they're a basketball school that's finding their way.
What do you think? What do you think the game plan is like for Utah against a Baylor team that? I mean, look, the last couple of weeks you've kept it relatively simple, and I guess we'll talk about it more next week when you join us. But you've let your offensive line win you these games offensively. Is that going to carry through these final 3 games?
So what we're going to see against Baylor is this guy is a huge proponent of the 3-3-5 defense. He's Rocky Long type of tree, right? So I'm excited to see this game because I think Beck worked with Bronco Mendenhall, right?
Yes.
So he got to go against this defense pretty just like his older brother Cody. He used to get better every week, man. So by the end of the season, right, you get this bye week. I think Lander Barton's due for a great last quarter of the season here.
Well, we'll be watching closely. I know you will too. Thanks for your time as always. We'll see you soon.
All right, guys. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Trevor Riley, Utah football insider, GM for the Utah Islanders. We'll talk about it in the Daily Dump. It's always shaky when you're trying to be part of something new. And then when you think, oh, my gosh, we got it really dialed in. We've been around for like 7-8 years. Rug can still be pulled out from under you. The Utah Warriors folks found that out yesterday. We'll get to that in the Daily Dump. And also, big-time breaking news concerning your Utah Jazz on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Time for the Daily Dump here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Any plumbing needs you have, let Valley Plumbing solve them for you. This is bad news, man. I feel like we were rolling today. I feel like we were vibing, having a good time here on a Wednesday. Halfway point of your week, it's all downhill from here. Breaking news from the Utah Jazz. Walker Kessler out for the season. He will have season-ending shoulder surgery. He has been a walking double-double so far. One of the bright spots, I think, developmentally for this team is Walker Kessler and what he is emerged into as a highly productive and I think sought-after, very much sought-after player. I mean, if the Jazz wanted to not make him a part of their future, they could get a bunch of assets back for him, but he's the guy kind of guy you want to keep here.
The Lakers were really desperate at last year's trade deadline after the Mavericks inexplicably gave them Luka Doncic and they had to give up their best big man in Anthony Davis in that deal. They were left with no centers. That would have been a great opportunity if the Jazz were like, you know what, we value the assets we can get for him more than we value what he can bring to the franchise in the future. I'm glad that they stuck with him, but this is tough. This is tough for him. Sorry to hear that about Walker. He's a great guy. I've had the chance to talk with him in the locker room a little bit, covering the games. Great guy, and has turned into a really good player. I really thought he was off to like an all-star caliber start to this season. I was really thrilled for him that way. Hopefully he's able to come back better than ever, but that's going to be next season.
Yeah, you hope that Walker Kessler has a complication-free recovery period, rehab period, and just gets back, picks up right where he left off. Somebody hook him up with some HGH or something.
Yeah, allegedly. The other angle to this, which it's not going to have any effect on him actually getting a long-term contract or not, but if you remember from Media Day, OC, he had the quote that said, I'm not happy and I'm frustrated that I didn't get a contract extension this offseason. I was expecting one. The Jazz decided not to. This year they decided to wait until he's a restricted free agent this summer, and they'll likely match an offer that he'll get somewhere else and keep him in the fold. Well, that's still probably going to happen, but he and his reps aren't going to be able to demand as much money because he's damaged goods because he was out for the season with the shoulder injury.
Takes leverage away. He'll still be a part of their plans moving forward, but it does subtract a significant amount of leverage from that type of conversation.
Yeah, so that's the angle for him personally, less for the Jazz and for his basketball career, but he probably lost a good amount of money this offseason.
So condolences to Walker Kessler. I think he'll still be part of what the Jazz want to do moving forward. So the text line 4234, which always trips me out because that's the same last four for my phone number.
Are you planting texts?
I'm texting my own show. 4234.
We're getting texts. See,
well, that's sad, but it helps the Jazz with their draft pick, right?
The other
here's the
angle
thing.
to this.
I don't. If the Jazz do this correctly, then yes. But also, even with Walker Kessler in there, you were trying to figure out a way to make your team young enough that they couldn't be good, and it kind of backfired a little bit. It seemed in the very early goings of this season, like, oh wow, these guys compete hard, they play well, they're probably going to win some games we didn't think they were going to win. And that's why Gordy Chiesa was like, this. They're going to be better than you guys think. And all of us were like, but they don't want to be good. What this does probably more than anything is it prevents the team from making a liar out of Austin Ainge. Because Austin Ainge told us, me specifically, at the press conference last year when he was introduced, won't see what? Won't see what, Austin? What won't we see this year? What are we not going to see? Oh, tanking. You won't see tanking this year. Now, it was starting to become a conversation. I don't know if in the organization, but like, hey, wait, is this team actually going to be spunky enough that you have to deliberately tank instead of just like roster tanking? You have to actually fake injuries, and you actually have to rest good players when they don't really need rest? Are we going to have to do that? Walker Kessler being injured now makes it less likely that you have to do those things. You were going to do them anyway. If it came to that, this Utah Jazz team, if they found out, oh, these young guys are too good.
Hey, hold on. What did he say? He said, I don't. What do you mean you were going to see that anyway, OC?
Okay, James. Let's string this out a little bit for the Daily Dump. Let's pretend that Walker Kessler doesn't get hurt. Lowry, Keontae, Walker, Kevin Love off the bench suddenly start to be like this. Hey, whoa, this is like a 30-win team.
Ace Bailey's a Rookie of the Year candidate.
Like, you think that Austin Ainge is going to be rolling over in bed at night, just be like, wait, I gave that one sentence answer to that random guy who doesn't even come to our games. I can't go back on my word now. No, he would do what's right for the franchise. And the unfortunate reality of what's right for the franchise is that you have to tank at least enough to protect your own pick that would convey to OKC or whatever.
And I've said this before, if that pick goes to the New York Knicks, who are also a really good team in the NBA, but in a different conference, let alone not in your same division like the Oklahoma City Thunder are, I don't know that they would care so much if they were better than the 8th pick in this year. But the fact that it goes to the defending champs who are in your conference, who are young enough that you're going that in 5 years, 3 to 5 years, conservatively, when you think you're going to be good again, you're going to be you're going to have to contend with those guys. Yeah, you want to do everything you can to make sure you don't give them another top 10 talent.
So Walker Kessler's shoulder surgery makes it less likely that Austin Ainge had to lie. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that from that angle, this could end up being a good thing for the Jazz, although it feels gross saying that because we're talking about a guy who's lost for the season because of an injury.
I don't know that it's a good thing.
But
I don't think there's any mental gymnastics I can do to where it's a good thing, because Walker Kessler being healthy is better for Walker Kessler, which is better for the team in the long run.
He's still young enough that
to go through this sucks.
Development matters.
Development does matter, and like if it got to a point where the team was too good to protect the draft pick naturally, then that's when the front office gets to play bad guy and gets to come down and say, Will Hardy, I'm taking these decisions out of your hands. And by the way, that's a perfect scenario, because if you do it right, you could even say to Will Hardy, you know what, go ahead and complain about it in the post-game press conferences. Go ahead and say, it's not my decision, guys, because that's fine. I will take the bullet. I will be the bad guy.
We'll see that this year.
In order to protect this draft pick. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And now you probably don't have to do it, but Walker Kessler being healthy and grumbling about, oh, man, why am I not playing, is way better than Walker Kessler being injured. And that's just
definitely true.
The Jazz's issues are much bigger than this, though. And if this somehow ends up being a good thing for them, I guess that'll be fine. But it's not in the short term, and I don't think in the long run it robs him of, 70 games. It robs him of 70 games of development.
Yeah, and
that sucks.
And by the way, he is developing new skills. Like, he's actually a decent 3-point shooter. So to start this season, so a full season of him shooting more threes in practice and in games and getting a better 3-point stroke. I mean, that could have been huge going forward.
Now he's just going to be sitting there on an exercise bike for the next.
Maybe he gets his arm. Well, no, it's a shoulder injury. He can't do the arm motions. He can get the leg motions right. He can get the footwork right.
Terrible.
Yeah. No.
All right. This is
sucks for Walker.
Big news in the Daily Dump. Also, I know it's not on everyone's radar, but I think that we talk enough about betting on this show, and people are kind of like either uncomfortable for the right reasons or they just decided to get comfortable with sports betting. In combat, sports betting has always been a much bigger thing. And we saw something happen this past weekend in the UFC. If you're not aware of it, it's very easy to look up. But some interesting changes started to happen on the line in one particular bet, where a prohibitive favorite started to dip in terms of his odds. Not because of injury, not because of rough weight cuts, but something was going on the betting line where the money was pushing in the opposite direction. And it was red flagged by these betting watchdogs, and the FBI oversees a lot of this. So it was red flagged by the FBI. The FBI actually contacted the UFC and said, hey, there's some irregular betting happening on this particular fight. If you want, we would suggest you pull it off the card and just say, hey, there's some issues here. UFC decided, no, we're gonna stick with it. Fight goes through. Not only did the prohibitive favorite end up being an underdog, but the manner in which you can bet on the prop of like, when's it going to happen? First round, second round, third round. Is it going to be a submission? Is it going to be a knockout? Is it going to be whatever? Money started to pour in on a first round victory for the previous underdog, for the guy who should have been the underdog in the fight. Money started to pour in on him being a first round victor in this fight, which again, red flag. And people are like, whoa, what is going on here? Why would it be happening in the final, 36 hours of betting? Like all of a sudden people are like, oh, this guy's not only going to win, he's going to win in the first round. James, guess what happened?
The favorite lost in the first round.
The favorite lost in the first round, and he lost in a way that anyone who knows the game would say, wait a second, that guy is supposed to be good at this grappling stuff, and he failed a takedown, seemingly that he should have been able to finish, and then he let this other guy who's not as good as him from a record standpoint, from an experience standpoint, from a skill standpoint, let that guy get onto his back and then slap in a choke. And then he proceeded to defend the choke poorly. And again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds for the non-MMA fans here, but you've seen the rear naked choke is the guy's on the other guy's back, arm snakes around the throat, other hand goes to the back of the head, you squeeze. It's one of the most common submissions. It's also one of the things that you learn how to defend on day one of jiu-jitsu. It's really, really hard to finish against someone in a first round who knows what they're doing. Usually you get it because you pummel them into submission. You get it because they're exhausted. You get it because there's just like this sort of attrition and capitulation, and I can't defend anymore because I'm so exhausted. This happened in the first round, and the guy didn't like do any of the regular playbook things for defending this choke. So everyone's just
that he's shown, obviously, if he was the favorite before that, he's shown that he's more than capable of doing it in other fights.
To do it. Now, on top of this, he's previously there, like a couple years ago, there was a coach named James Krause, who was a fighter at one time himself, who got in trouble for this exact thing, for fixing fights or for giving insider information on injuries so that people could bet on fights. And he was like big time. He had like a Discord channel where he was talking about betting all the time. This fighter was associated with that coach, right? So all these red flags, all these alarm bells are ding, 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 to the point where the sports books were like, that's a fixed fight. And if you had the winning bet or the losing bet, on the guy who ended up throwing the fight, they refunded your money.
Wow.
Sportsbooks, casinos never, ever, ever give money back, ever, unless they felt like it was fixed. And they felt like their evaluation, plus what the FBI had to say, they were like, yeah, that's far too suspicious. Now, it's all innocent until proven guilty, blah, blah, blah. But it's far too suspicious, so they refunded their bettors. They said, oh, you lost $5 on that guy that you thought was supposed to be better than that? Here's your money back. That was suspicious.
That's wild.
It doesn't happen that often. It's so hard to get away with. And at the end of the day, he didn't get away with it because what happened was the UFC, even though they had refused to pull the fight, saw how it played out, saw that the sports books and the headlines were paying attention to this, and so this guy who's an incredibly promising fighter, they were like, you're cut, you're done, you're fired. He's out. He's fired by the UFC because he clearly was involved with some level of fight fixing, and then that was last weekend, okay? That was Saturday. Then, of course, everyone in this fight game is talking about it. And all of a sudden, other fighters start coming out of the woodwork and saying, like, yeah, I've had someone approach me and offer me money to throw a fight. That never happened to me.
I was going to ask you, like, we've had when the NBA news came out, we had Eric Weddle on the show that day. We asked him if he knew of anyone that had been approached in the NFL. He said no. I wonder about you.
There were like 10 fighters that reached out to various people or just tweeted themselves and said, yeah, somebody offered me $50,000. Somebody offered me $100,000. Somebody offered me $70,000 to throw a fight. Now, maybe they just want attention. More likely, they're like, yeah, that actually did happen. And I said no. There was one guy who said he got offered $70,000. He said no, and he lost the fight anyway. So he was like, I probably should have just taken the money because I got beat up anyway.
Or I should have taken the money and then tried my best.
Like that guy, I
anyway.
would 1,000,000% believe that guy because he's like highlighting. Fighters don't like to talk about the times they lost, and he's like reminding everyone, remember that? Well, I got offered to throw that fight. I didn't throw it, and then I got beat anyway, so I lost out money on it. So now this has developed to a point where Dana White and the UFC have talked to the FBI. They've been cooperating with the FBI, and he issued a statement effectively to all fighters, all people who are aspiring to fight in the UFC. If you try to do this, we will destroy your life. We will destroy your career. He doesn't want there to be any question about the integrity of the sport. There was rumors out there that one particular referee's fights were being audited by the FBI. Look, we know fight fixing has been a thing in every combat sport. In boxing, there's a long history of it. In MMA, it obviously it happened this weekend. It's obviously still around. I have watched one fight. I've watched one fight that I am 1,000,000% sure was a fix.
Not proven, though, but just
never been proven. Law enforcement never got involved, but I know that the sky is blue, water is wet, and that particular fight was fixed.
I think people can trust your fighting acumen. If you're saying that, that is what happened.
And look, I'm not going to go into the details of this particular fight I'm talking about, but I know that it was fixed. I know why it was fixed. I know who was benefiting from it being fixed. Like, I know that it was a fix.
So this still happens, obviously, with it happening this weekend, but not like in MMA, UFC, or otherwise. It still happens.
It's still happening, and Dabo Swinney this past weekend was talking about how referees are not held accountable. There's all these like red flags that go up when coaches are involved or players are involved. And Dabo, I thought, most of the time we make fun of the weird points he's trying to make, but he's absolutely right.
Yeah,
I can't even remember the context he was asked about. He was just like, referees are people too. They're individuals who have a desire for money too. Referees, by the way, have a heck of a lot more influence on a game than an individual player, unless you're a quarterback. A referee can fix a game better than any player can in football.
I would say coaches too. Like, coaches aren't out there executing the game plan. Like, the refs can say, hey, that thing that was very borderline, that's a flag, or it's not a flag.
There's not really recourse in the moment, right? If I'm a referee, right? If you're a referee, and I don't want to play sour grapes, and I don't think this has happened to Utah football, but I'm sure it's happened in some high-profile college football game, right? A touchdown gets scored that you, the referee, are like, that I can't have that touchdown be scored. All you have to do is pull the flag out.
You can say, "Oh yeah, there." You see that holding there that happens on every play that we've been looking the other way at. Yeah, offensive holding,
illegal block in the back. As long as somebody falls down, you just be like, "Oh, block in the back."
What was the? No, I'm not. Disclaimer. I'm not saying that this is an example of obvious game was fixed. But what was that? What was the game where there was like crazy hand fighting and they called offensive pass interference for no reason?
Yes.
On like a 40-yard, on what would have been a 40-yard catch. Was that an NFL game or a college football game? I can't think of it right now. But it was like, are you kidding me?
There was a game 2 weeks ago where they threw a flag for illegal block in the back, and they went through the replay.
There's no block.
And there was no contact. He didn't get touched. And they were just like, I mean, if you're on a broadcast, that puts you in a terrible position. He's just like, I don't know what the refs see in there.
They missed that.
Now, I'm sure the majority of the time, most of the time when that happens, it's just a ref got it wrong.
Yeah.
Right? It's a ref is afraid he missed something. His eyes went onto that play, saw somebody running behind somebody else. The guy falls down.
Dabo's
like,
point, they're human beings. Yeah, they get stuff wrong. They miss stuff.
But it would be the easiest thing in the world to just be like, I'm an umpire holding on every play.
Yeah.
Every touchdown, holding. And you're just like, oh, my gosh.
If there's any kind of hand fighting, whatever I need, it's pass interference against that guy.
The punishment comes weeks after if you do get it obviously wrong.
Yeah, you don't get chosen and assigned to officiate certain games, but that's like that's the main recourse, that's a good system, right? But to your point, you still get to finish the game that you may or may not be fixing.
Somebody just texted in. Remember the figure skating judge from 2002, Salt Lake Olympics, Marie-Renée Legonier, at the Salt Lake City Olympics, suspended 3 years after initially admitting to being pressured by the head of the French Skating Federation to vote for the Russian pair over the Canadian team. Guys, I understand that sports gambling, that wagering is part of the culture. It's something that everybody enjoys. I know that, the mainstream nature of it is uncomfortable for some people. I actually think it's better because at the end of the day, what we saw with this UFC thing, the original story I'm telling you, why we got into the betting conversation, is he didn't get away with it. And part of the reason that he didn't get away with it is because there are watchdogs all over the place because it is now a legal multi-billion-dollar industry.
They got the FBI watching every bet, it seems like.
Well, that's what's so funny about this is like the FBI is watching this, and the FBI is making sure that the money comes in legally and with integrity while they're just like, well, but see, that was cheating, and so the cheating is probably the bad guys, so we'll use the cheating to find the bad guys. The regular stuff, go ahead and bet. We don't care. Billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Give us that pays our salary. We're government employees. Taxation without representation, whatever. But they're looking at these nefarious practices, and they're calling it out. The FBI is protecting the legal betting entities from organized crime involvement or whatever.
Yeah.
That's bananas.
Yep. What a world we've come to when it comes to sports betting, for sure. Your thought on, because you said Dana White and UFC had a chance. They were told beforehand they had a chance to scratch the fight. That seems like that was a mistake not to, right?
It's a huge mistake, and it's something that, look, I'm not a guy who's just going to poo-poo the UFC because they're competition for the PFL, and to say that they're competition for the PFL is the same thing as like
XFL and NFL.
It's like Canadian football and the NFL. Like they're just way, way, way more established. It's
technically they're your competition, but they're way higher level.
It's like Eurobasket is competition for the NBA. There's some of those guys are good enough to play in the NBA, but their television contracts are it's all completely a different league, right? But Dana White and the UFC are now so powerful that this is not the only time. This is not even probably the best example of when they've made decisions like this where they're just like, just leave it alone because we don't want any negative attention. And wrong call, obviously, because you get more negative attention. But it's one of those things where it's like they don't have to, like, they're so bulletproof right now. They don't have to do it right.
Yeah.
So the right thing to do is to be like, yeah, suspicious betting practices. It's not a main event. I promise you nobody bought a ticket to that fight card or tuned in to watch that fight card exclusively for this fight. If there's crazy stuff going on with Conor McGregor involved, they're going to be like, please don't drop this fight off the card. This is why people are watching us. It's a bad decision for them to not pull the fight. They tried to rectify it by firing the guy. And now you've got a talented fighter who's out in the free agency world and one of the most respected coaches in all of MMA, Mark Montoya, went on Ariel Helwani's podcast yesterday and said, I bet he will never fight again because now he is pariah. Now he is persona non grata. Do not touch that fighter because he at one time agreed to fix a fight.
Yeah.
Like in the PFL, he's crazy talented. In the PFL, can we sign him? Be like, hey, you're not under contract. We'd love to have you, but how do we know you're not going to stay in this world of fixing fights? Like, you can't do it. He can't be touched. At least, maybe not for a little while. All right, way over time again, which means we got to double up. We'll go between the pipes with Adrian Denny next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We go between the pipes with our Mammoth insider, Adrian Denny, who joins us in our Broadway studios. Conversation brought to you by Valley Plumbing. For your plumbing and drain cleaning needs, look for the truck with a duck. And by Aladdin Industries, your Velux dealer. Adrian Denny, welcome back. How are you?
How's it going, Sean? Great to see you.
Yeah, man, good to see you. Good to be able to talk about a win that snapped a minor skid for this Utah Mammoth team. They get it done in Buffalo, the former stomping grounds of one John Jason Paterka. How did he play against his old team?
You know what? If you looked at that line of him and Gunther and Cooley on Tuesday night, you'd probably say they were our least productive line, which doesn't mean that they had a bad game. They still outchanced Buffalo. They were on the ice for their only goal against, but it might be more of a compliment to the other three lines that Utah had last night that were incredibly dominant. They outshot the Sabres 35-18, outshot them 27-8 over the final 40 minutes. There was only 2 goals in that game, but every metric offensively for Utah last night seemed like it was a season high in terms of where they were getting their scoring chances from, right in front of the net, their cycle chances off of holding the puck in the offensive zone. So it was one of those games we've talked about, fighting through adversity and staying composed. And it was kind of a different type of adversity in that game because they're just dominating and the puck wasn't going in. Buffalo blocked a lot of shots. Their goalie, who's not been especially great this year and over his career, usually he's good to give you 3-4 goals a game. Made some big stops. So they stuck with it and found a way to win it.
So this for me is really one of the really interesting things about games like hockey. And basketball and hockey have a lot of similarities from the 5-on-5 standpoint and whatnot. But I did a lot of basketball pre- and post-game shows with Josh Grant, second all-time leading scorer in the history of Utah basketball. And he has educated me more on basketball than most people. Gordy Chiesa obviously belongs in that conversation. But one of the things that we would talk about a lot was the difference between winning basketball and basketball that you just happen to win. This, to me, felt like one of those games where the Mammoth were showing winning hockey, right? They were playing a brand of hockey that very easily could have made this a 4-1 game, a 5-2 game, a 6-0 game. But it happened to be they squeaked one out. Not because they weren't playing winning hockey, but because, like you said, a Buffalo goalie decided to stand on his head on a random night. And I think that we as fans, especially new fans of the sport, we can sometimes get wrapped up in the, like the hyper-focus on goals scored is obviously that's what wins you the games. But if you're playing winning hockey and it just doesn't look as sexy, isn't that better than like accidentally falling backward into a 2-1 win or a 3-0 win, if I'm making sense?
Yeah, you look at all the different ways you can win a game, right? You can outscore an opponent. You can jump up early. They come back. You pull it off. Or a game like last night that just is kind of a grind when you're playing well and you get that goal in overtime to come away with it. And during the course of a season, during the course of a winning streak, like you got to have games like that. And Buffalo, I think, was what Utah was last year in that game, having a chance to win, but a team that was more experienced, more mature, more seasoned, won the game. You look at Buffalo, they've been past regulation in 5 straight games. They've won one of them. How familiar does that sound as far as Utah last year when they were in literally every single game? And they finished with a winning record. They won 37 games, 7 games above 500, but maybe a game like that or 2 that could have gone in a different direction kind of changes the season. And OC, as you looked at the Eastern Conference going into yesterday as an example, the last place team and the first wild card team were separated by a point. There wasn't a team in the conference with a losing record. They last place and the first wild card separated by a point, which is how tight it was.
That's wild. And You got to let the whole season play itself out. But as we are early in this one, Mammoth look like they're – well, I'll let you answer. Are they on or ahead of schedule based on where we're at right now?
I think ahead of where you'd think they'd be if you looked at their schedule, right? They are in this stretch right now playing 11 of their first 16 on the road and against tough teams. And they started a 4-game road trip last night, won that, picking up where they left off on that 3-1 trip that ended last week. So I think the schedule is as tough as you can get in the NHL, and they've continued to win games. And snapping that 2-game losing streak was big, right? It was maybe the first test of the year. Okay, won 7 in a row. Life was great. And then you lose that game in Edmonton. You lose Sunday to Tampa Bay. And it's like, how do you end this? Can you be a team that doesn't let the losing streak go past 2 games? And what I think you saw last night in particular were 2 stars, 2 leaders, 2 guys that have been part of the entire build, with GM Bill Armstrong and Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller just saying, yeah, we're going to go find a way to do this. Come along, guys.
When you talk about the losing streak and kind of interrupting it, Ian Cole was like, can't let it be more than 2. Now, I don't have a didactic memory of every post-game loss comment that these Utah Mammoth, or at that time Utah Hockey Club players would, how they would react to losses last season. But it feels like a lot of times when, a player or a coach is talking about a loss, you get this similar coach speak-ish type answers. Did a lot of good things tonight. We got to be better next time. Don't let it affect us, blah, 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 blah. There's something in the tone, there's something in the tenor of saying, no, we have to win now. You don't have to win now. I mean, from a mathematical perspective, you don't have to win now. But it's clear that this team has some goals, some conversation.
Very honest, very direct, very well thought out. And the group, I think, still feels the sting of missing the playoffs by single digits in terms of points last year, and they want to make sure they're not in that spot this year. And we saw them turn a corner last year. Before the Four Nations faceoff break in February, they had 8 stretches where they were winless in 2 or more games in a row. After the Four Nations faceoff break last year, the final 26 games of the year, they had only 2 stretches where they lost more than 2 games in a row. So that was something they wanted to end it. They wanted to start fresh on that trip, knowing that, Buffalo might be the most winnable game on that trip, as they go to Toronto tonight, Montreal Saturday, who's got the best record in the Eastern Conference, and Ottawa, another playoff team on Sunday. But they really went into last night's game wanting to win it and feeling like they put themselves in a good spot to be refreshed. The team, with the 1:30 start on Sunday, flew to Buffalo after the game, had a day in Buffalo to just kind of get set. Didn't skate or anything, but they wanted to get down to business last night. And I thought it would be a game, I thought your top 2 lines, the Hayton, Schmaltz, Keller, Gunther, Cooley, Peterka, I thought, they were held scoreless, both lines, for the second time this year on Sunday. I thought, okay, they're going to break out here and take this one, get 4, 5, 6 goals, especially playing a Buffalo team that I didn't think could handle playing against 2 top lines like that. But it turned out to be the Stars were the Stars, but not necessarily in the way we kind of expected.
I don't want to bounce around too bit, but I saw this, and I thought it was a really crazy stat that I wouldn't have thought to even pay attention to or look up if someone hadn't highlighted it. But when you talk about lines that have had a lot of success together, we know who that is for the Utah Mammoth. People are starting to get a good awareness of who that is in the NHL. Even casual fans know the name McDavid and Draisaitl and their line mate Nugent Hopkins. This is wild. They have played 631 regular season games. 96 playoff games with all three in the lineup. And the St. Louis Blues, for the first time in whatever that is, 727 combined games, held that line to 0 shots on goal. We started the conversation talking about how, like, oh, yeah, you know, it's almost like a tongue-in-cheek, like, yeah, they maybe would have liked to have seen the J.J. Peterka line be a little bit more productive. But these flukes happen, and obviously it is a fluke. Like, 727 times Draisaitl, McDavid, and Nugent-Hopkins have skated together and got at least a shot on goal the first time in that span that they haven't. Strange things happen in hockey.
And going into last night's game, St. Louis was 3-7-2 and had the second to worst record in the NHL. And they'd done nothing right? Giving up goals has been their biggest issue. So you think, going up against a team like Edmonton's, like, it's going to be everybody gets a goal night, right? And just so funny. And, it's the games are so tightly played. And Utah, for instance, tonight is playing a team like Toronto, who's the second heaviest team in the NHL and lays down the second most hits. So we'll see what kind of challenges that poses. But it's a fun thing about the NHL. You're playing a backup goalie, as Utah likely does tonight on the back-to-back with Vitek Vanacek, but he just went into Winnipeg and won
2 in a row for him?
3-2. Yeah, beat Boston 3-2.
That's right.
And his previous start before that on October 19th. So he's 2-1 and has allowed 2 goals in all 3 of his starts, and done it once this year. So it's every time in hockey that you think you know what's going on, I've learned, because I double down on it. I double down that our top 6 was going to get 4 or 5 goals in the game last night, and they won us the game, just not like that. But hockey has a sense of humor. It'll get back at you.
Utah Mammoth insider Adrian Denny is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Conversation brought to you by Aladdin Industries, your Utah Velux dealer. So let's get back to this Utah versus Toronto. You just mentioned how physical Toronto is from like a size and a play style standpoint. And I don't know if there's any teams in the NHL where the GM or the coach says otherwise, but Bill Armstrong and Coach Bear have said, we want to be that kind of team. We want to be a physical team. We want to have that physical presence. We want teams to be, intimidated, or at least know what they're going to go up against. And Toronto is that team for a lot of other NHL squads. Do you have to go and, bully the bully? Do you have to go and play their style of hockey? Do you have to go try to out-physical Toronto? Because you have size. You have more size this year than you did last year, right? Some of that size is still very young. So in a game like this one, at their place, with a whole season in mind, and really, if we're being honest, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons that we hope this team emerges into Stanley Cup contention down the line, a game like this, how do you handle your play style knowing that they're so good at that thing that you're still kind of aspiring to?
I think if hits in this game are 30-10 in favor of Toronto, maybe they will be. Utah's on a back-to-back, but I think in hockey where you get in the most trouble is when you look at those underlying stats and try and beat them at their game, especially with Utah. We've seen games this year where they got out hit, say, for a 3-1 ratio like that, but their third and fourth lines have done a good job. Michael Carcone laid down 4 hits last night. Jack McBain, Lawson Krause, always physical. Brandon Tanev and Kevin Stenlund are always going to be in the mix. But I think the biggest test tonight for Utah is what we talked about last week after losing to Edmonton. They didn't beat Toronto last year. You look at their lineup, Mitch Marner's not there. He's in Vegas. But you got Austin Matthews and William Nylander, who just puts in about 2 points a game, and you're playing in Toronto. 5 Utah forwards are from the province of Ontario. Can you get over this hump and beat this Maple Leafs team, because I think it's pretty similar to going into Edmonton. The atmosphere, the skill, the intrigue of looking up and seeing those Stanley Cup banners, nothing from the 60s, but they're there. It's a hockey setting.
Oh, this one of the things that we have fun with, right? Like, you highlight that atmosphere, you highlight Canadian NHL arenas. Those barns are different than the American ones. We're trying to get to that level at the Delta Center, I think. Everything from the ticket prices to when people show up, the sort of like the chants, right? It's just ingrained in the culture there. Is there a learning opportunity? Like, from a fan perspective, you watch a game like this, you don't see as much of it because you're watching on TV. But I mean, how do you close that gap from a franchise, organizational, and city level to get to where, your team feels that same support, your guys are get that same kind of home ice advantage that some of these Canadian teams do?
Do you know what? I think Utah's in a good spot.
Okay.
Being in their identity, who they are, and how they've come in to support this team. Number one, as a Utahn, we are rarely on time for anything.
That's correct. We are late arrivers.
I can't help it. It just happens. We're always 10 minutes behind. Like, the hockey fans in Utah have been on time for the games, which is something that I haven't seen really for anything, including elementary school, in my entire life growing up here. The fans, good deal of them are in the seats for warm-ups, and the arena's full by face-off.
I will say this. There were at least 4 seats on Sunday's game, last home game here, that were not full at face-off because it was a day game, so we're like, okay, we could take the kids to a day game.
Yeah.
That really pushes you back on your arrival times. Holy cow. It just makes everything go slow.
That 1:30 face-off just happened. Like, that is early.
It's early.
On a Sunday, no less.
It was great, though. Those losses, we haven't talked about them. The back-to-back losses that, thankfully, last night's win snapped the skid. How do you process them? Was there anything significant that you're like, okay, that can't be part of this team identity if they're going to be a playoff team moving forward? Or was that, you get ups and downs, you're going to get peaks and valleys in the season. Was that just one of the valleys?
Not an area of concern at all. Didn't think twice about it. Number one, the Edmonton game that you're up 2-0 and you lose, after they poured it on with a 5-goal second period. I can't tell you how many times I've seen in the ECHL, in the AHL, in the NHL, a team at the end of a road trip that's gone well, and you just get to the end of it, and you might start okay, but finishing it catches up to you. And that's why I think if Utah can win 1 out of the final 3 on this trip and come home 10-6, I think that's a huge success to have a 500 trip here, playing 2 back-to-backs, Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. So that's what I look at the Edmonton game as on Tuesday. So no concern, it happens. You lose your second straight against Tampa Bay. Always seems first game back from a trip is another one to try and find your A game in, especially when you haven't played in 4 days. But you can't keep going every other day. Every other day you're gonna get exhausted. But so you get 4 days off. Tampa Bay, I thought, just was really good. I thought they were suffocating in terms of how they defended Utah, even though Mammoth had some really good chances off the rush, able to use their speed, but then the Lightning shut it down. But to me, the biggest thing of that game, I think the message after that was just okay isn't okay when you're playing a team like Tampa Bay, who might be playing the best hockey in the NHL. They entered yesterday before they lost to Colorado with a 5-game winning streak. But it was still a 2-2 game in the third period with a chance to win. Dominated the third period, outshot the Lightning 11-3, and Karel Vejmelka gave up the worst goal he's given up all year, maybe in the last 2 years. So and you lose that game that you had a chance to win, and you go back and you piece it apart. You pick it apart because you didn't win, but you're pretty close to taking a game that you were pretty average in and beating Tampa and snapping their 4-game winning streak.
Should we be at all surprised at how productive Schmaltz is at this point in the season? I mean, not to say that we're surprised that he's so good, but he's leading the team in like everything. And, most people didn't have that on the bingo card.
Yeah. I just look at it. He's about to turn 30. He's in his 10th year in the NHL. But the stuff that him and Clayton Keller do to just improve year after year after year, like Keller's in his 9th year, Schmaltz is in his 10th year. Like, is there a plateau? Is there a ceiling? And he's putting up the best numbers of his career. And I think it's a real impressive thing that Schmaltz has come out and done this and found a way to add more points, improve his team, and help Utah win. But it just really goes to show how serious those two guys are about winning and helping the team win. Schmaltz broke the ice early in the third last night, got that goal to make it 1-0, and Keller assisted on it, and then Keller scored the game winner. But really, for both of those guys continuing to improve their offensive production, and the team continues to win because they have seen some dark days in the National Hockey League. Schmaltz has played in 4 career playoff games, and it came early in his career.
10 years.
Early in his career in Chicago. Keller's played in 9 career playoff games, and it came in the bubble in Edmonton during the COVID summer of 2020. And those guys have just stuck with it, and they've gotten better. They've taken the information that coaches have given them and used it to improve, but also used it to just kind of set the culture for this team that has had so many young players, and they've brought in so many players. And you bring in guys with Stanley Cup rings. Utah has 9 Stanley Cup rings in their locker room, but those guys are the core. And I don't think we talk enough about them because we're so focused on Cooley and Gunther and their ceilings and how much higher than they can go. It's only Cooley's 3rd year in the NHL and Gunther's second full NHL season. And then you bring in a guy like Peterka, and then you add a Sergachev around him and a Brandon Tanev, but those guys, Schmaltz and Keller, your core, and they're leading the way in every single possible department.
Always great catching up with you, sir. Appreciate you that you come in. You make the effort to come in and hang out with us.
I love coming in here. It's a blast. Favorite part of the week. I love my Wednesdays at 1 with OC.
How do you feel about magicians, illusionists?
I like to be entertained.
Yeah. Okay.
I enjoy a good show.
Same. James is he's out. James doesn't enjoy that kind of stuff. I don't know why, but I'm a big fan. And we actually have a 4-pack of sneak preview tickets to give away to Now You See Me, Now You Don't, the 3rd in the Now You See Me franchise. That'll be going down next week at the Megaplex at Valley Fair. Make sure you're tuned in about 15 minutes when we do topical trivia. We'll cut you loose, Adrian Denny. Thank you for your time, as always, sir.
Have a great rest of your week, Sean. We'll talk to you next week.
Our Mammoth insider, Adrian Denny, best in the business. We go between the pipes every week, brought to you by Valley Plumbing. For your plumbing and drain cleaning needs, look for the truck with the duck, Aladdin Industries, your Utah Velux dealer. I want to dive back in to this college football playoff rankings conversation. A message has been sent for the University of Utah and for the Big 12. I'll tell you what that is in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show. If you weren't tuned in when we started today, I mean, I've only come down a little bit. I was all last night, all this morning, just riding high on knowing that we were going to have a lot to talk about today because the college football playoff rankings, the first of the college football playoff rankings were released last night, and the declaration, the message sent by the College Football Playoff Committee was that we like the Big 12 conference and we don't like the ACC conference. I love seeing that. Do I want to see we really love, we're obsessed with, we're swim fanning about the SEC? No. But they were a little bit cool on the Big 10 in their rankings. I think part of that is because they know that it's all going to come out in the wash in these next few weeks with the Big 10 because there's a lot of ranked versus ranked games in that conference, the same way there is in the SEC. It looks like, if you base it on this week, I would say there are going to be 6 SEC teams in the field of 12. I think you're going to get 3 Big 12 teams in, and then you're going to have a Big 12 champion. You're going to have the automatic qualifier, and you're going to have, the automatic qualifier at the highest ranked group of 5 conference champ. And then you're going to have, of course, your ACC champ. Now, that's based on this week. If you really let it play out, there's a scenario in which there's only 2 Big 10 teams. There's a scenario in which there are 5 SEC teams. I don't think we get fewer than 5 SEC teams in. If you get 5 SEC teams and 2 Big 10 teams, suddenly the possibility for a Big 12 at large or a Big 12 runner-up being in gets a lot more distinct. Right now, you have to root, as a Utah fan, you have to root for these front runners, Ohio State, Indiana, Alabama, Texas A&M. You have to root for them to continue to be successful. Because an automatic qualifier spot goes to the ACC champ, you have to kind of hope that that ACC champ is the team that we have proclaimed all year long is the best team in the ACC. You probably hope that that's Georgia Tech. If one of these, if Louisville or if a team like that ends up being the ACC champ, then one of these other ACC teams, Miami finishing strong, somebody like that suddenly has a better case. And look, there might not even be a lot of wiggle room, but the message sent by the committee, I think, to Utah is that there's a path. Continue to win, continue to dominate. There is a path to you getting in to the college football playoff. You need help. We know that that's the case. But the help is not outside the realm of possibility in a way that even like 2 weeks ago, after you're coming off a BYU loss, I was like, oh, man, that's a real huge bummer because that tiebreaker issue now makes it so you're not going to get into the Big 12 championship game. We spent some time yesterday telling you that that's not necessarily the case. There is a path into the Big 12 championship game. And then beyond that, it's like, okay, well, if you could backdoor your way into the championship game and win it like you did in 2022 in the Pac-12, you're fine.
Yeah, then you don't have to worry about what the rest of the field does.
All this other stuff doesn't matter. But now I'm looking at it, and I didn't think that we would get to a point where this conversation made any sense at all. But the first college football playoff committee rankings come out, and Utah's sitting at 13. Now, because there's not an ACC team above you, and because there's no group of 5 team above you, this ranking is really 15 for Utah. Yeah. Because the champs in that, the ACC conference champ and the highest ranked conference champ from the group of 5 has to be put into the top 12.
And you know that the committee, if Notre Dame stays a 2-loss team, the committee probably feels the same way about Notre Dame. So it may even be 16 in effect, right? If Notre Dame doesn't stumble, and they don't have many opportunities to stub their toe the rest of this season.
So Notre Dame's already ahead of you, and they're
Right.
sitting at 10, right? But like if you just played it out to where there was no automatic qualifiers, and
Yeah.
what would Utah have to do if there were no automatic qualifiers?
They're one spot away.
They're a spot away, and they're a spot behind teams like Oklahoma and Texas that have really, really tough games. Oregon has some really tough games. I think they're more likely to win those games than to lose them, and you should be rooting for that as a Utah fan, as we talked about earlier in the show. If USC beats Oregon because they're USC, suddenly USC goes from being 19th in the country to 11th in the country.
Yeah, they get a big boost. Yeah.
And Oregon probably only falls to 12th. And now Utah, even if they win in kind of like unconvincing fashion, now this committee is just being like, Oregon passes the eye test because that's a bunch of dudes who are going to be playing on Sundays. And USC is USC, and we got to give the West Coast and Lincoln Riley something to cling on to. So, I mean, it's the Big 12 Conference right now with things that will come out in the wash. BYU Texas Tech this week could not be a bigger game at a more opportune time, at a more significant moment in the Big 12 Conference. Your top two ranked teams on College game day, 7 and 8 in the initial college football playoff ranking.
First game of the day. First game of the day, too.
They're going up against one another to winner plants a flag and says, we are definitively, without a doubt, the best team in the conference. We are in the driver's seat. We are a college football playoff team. I think the winner of this game probably ends up in the college football playoff one way or the other.
Yeah.
Like, even if they're the second team in from the Big 12, the winner of this game is either, an undefeated BYU that rides it out till the end, or it's a Texas Tech team that BYU, the headlines are that LJ Martin's going to play. How close to 100% is he, right? Like, BYU finds out how legit they are against Texas Tech. They passed the test against Utah by the narrowest of margins, but they did pass the test. They got over the hump against Iowa State after a scare. That's another test passed. Can you go up against a Texas Tech team that is scoring more than anyone in the conference and is not letting people run? Like, Texas Tech gives up 70 yards a game in the run game.
Which, whether you have a healthy LJ Martin or not, is bad news for BYU, because similar to what we talked about with Utah, if they can't get their running game going, they're going to struggle on offense.
They're reliant on the run game, and there's nothing wrong with being reliant on the run game.
It's a good way to go. We've seen it with Utah.
Like, they have a high percentage of – they have the ultimate percentage of success with that right now. But, man, Utah being 13, and even if the adjusted ranking is 15 or 16, there's so much room for movement in front of you. And, yes, there is the possibility that there's room for movement from behind you to overtake you. I'm talking about Louisville. I'm talking about Vanderbilt. I'm talking about Miami and USC.
Iowa, we talked about earlier in the show.
Iowa would maybe take 2 wins.
Yeah, they're farther behind, but
Iowa's got Oregon and USC. If Iowa beats Oregon and USC, like,
I don't know how the committee says, you know what, they're not one of the top 12 teams in the country.
If Iowa beats Oregon and USC in back-to-back weeks and then finishes out against Michigan and a pretty good Nebraska team, a decent Nebraska team, now Iowa all of a sudden is number 10.
They're pretty hot. They'd get a lot of points in my resume point system too.
And
that,
at the end of the day, you have to worry about good big brands first, but you also have to worry. Iowa is you. You and Iowa you have more in common.
Yeah,
longest tenured coach in the land, respected program that is not like a big time television draw the same way that some of these others are. Like, you need to have a better resume than Iowa if you're Utah.
Yeah.
You can't afford for Iowa to do this.
You
have no control over it.
Even down to style of play, although Utah's offense way more prolific than Iowa's is this year, you're very similar even down to style of play too.
I mean, even the story of where your quarterback came from is pretty similar.
Yeah. So, and like I said before, if Iowa puts themselves in the conversation and it's like a tie for the last at-large bid between a virtual tie between Iowa and Utah. I'm not near as scared of that situation, of that scenario, as I would be if it's a tie between Utah and Oregon or Texas, right? Because, yes, you're going up against a Big Ten team, but it's Iowa in the Big Ten, right? With Oregon and Texas, you're going up against Big Ten and SEC brand, but you're also going up against two of the biggest brands in the history of college football, and with Oregon in the recent history of college football. So it's that's not near as scary as a scenario, but you still want those guys behind. You don't want to leave any doubt, right? You want those guys behind you to stay behind you.
And you want to make sure that in your final 3 games of the season that you cling on to this thing that you've been able to build where your offense is scoring 40 points and your defense is giving up a score or 2.
Yeah, you're holding under 15 or 20 points a game.
If you have 3 dominating wins, you build a really strong case for yourself. And I know, and we just got a text about this, suggesting we bring Dave Bartu on. Okay, we'll think about it. But also talking about the metrics that this committee uses. They have all the advanced metrics, and they say it's about strength of record. They say it's about strength of schedule. They like the quality loss thing. I don't like the quality loss thing. And they say, no, it's not always about it. It's not an eyeball test thing. But that's also not true because we have proof that they care about an eyeball test.
They absolutely care about style points and eyeball test, yeah.
And the best example of this is when they left Florida State out because their quarterback got hurt.
Absolutely.
They no longer – their resume said they belong in. Their record says they belong in. And then the committee said, well, the eyeball test says that you're not going to be good because you don't have that guy.
Yeah, you're not the same team without your Heisman candidate starting quarterback, which, yeah, that's true. But, like, should this not also be a merit-based thing?
It should be an accomplishment
right?
and merit-based thing. And that's where, again, I say that knowing that you can use that argument against Utah right now. Because Utah's quality wins are now unranked teams in the college football playoff rankings.
The committee has said
Arizona State, Cincinnati, that's a quality win, but that's all it is. It's not overly impressive. Utah's ranking right now is heavily based on the eyeball test, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely.
It's heavily based on the fact that when you pull up the metrics, wow, they don't give up a lot of points, and finally they have an offense.
The other most famous example of this, and this is, it's a new committee members every year. And this 12-team playoff, those were 4-team playoff scenarios, the one I'm going to bring up in the Florida State one you brought up. But Ohio State in the very first year of the playoff, they lose to Virginia Tech on the season opener, a Virginia Tech team that went on to do basically nothing the rest of the year. And yet then they just started destroying people the rest of the season, and they end with a Big Ten championship win of 59-0. And you cannot tell me or TCU fans or Baylor fans famously that the way that they beat that good but not great Wisconsin team in Indianapolis had nothing to do with them being included for the last spot in that playoff. Now they validated it by winning the national championship. But there was no question that there was a stronger argument for TCU or Baylor to make it over them. But they liked the style points that Urban Meyer and his Buckeyes showed at the end of the season. So that's a formula that Utah can use to their advantage.
I was on the show yesterday thinking when the college football playoff rankings come out, Utah is going to be ranked 17, which is where they are. It's going to be a nod. Hey, you're a good quality team. You don't really have any, show-me games left. You don't have, there's not a big resume builder left.
You lost your 2 big resume-building opportunities.
I was dead set on being okay with the idea that you're going to put together a nice little run at the end of the season and cross your fingers and hope that something happens in the Big 12 conference so you can backdoor your way into the conference championship game, probably for a BYU rematch. That is your best path. And really what this is about for me, Utah's not going to win a national championship this year. That's not what it's about. It's about the closure for Kyle Whittingham, checking the box and saying, I made a college football playoff. I can ride off into the sunset with some level of satisfaction, right? It'd be really, really cool for him to say, I won mid-major conference titles, I won major conference titles, and I got my team into the playoffs. Those are all accomplishments, the Pac-12 championships and the undefeated Sugar Bowl season and now a college football playoff. Those are accomplishments that no other coach in Utah football history has been able to pull off. Obviously, Urban Meyer did the undefeated thing, but we capped off that season against the number 23 team in the country or something like that. Like, Sugar Bowl was a bigger deal. It'd be really cool to see Kyle Whittingham finish it out this way. And I was full on, like, that's as good as it's going to get. This playoff ranking, this college football committee, they were like, I don't know, we really like Utah. Keep winning, and we'll see what happens. If you're a player on this team right now and you needed a carrot dangling in front of you, they probably didn't. But maybe some of them, maybe there was one guy on this team that's just like, I don't know, man, we can't win a conference championship. We're going to go to some meaningless bowl game. I thought we were going to win it all here. Guess what? You might do something that nobody in the history of this school has ever done and be in that college football playoff. The committee has said you have a shot at that. The coaching staff, the message has been sent to you. You've got a shot at that. Whether it's an outlier, whether it's a tough sell, whether it's an almost, you have a shot. And the door is closed already for all but 20 teams in the country. You're in that 20. Go get it. All right, we're going to give away some Now You See Me, Now You Don't tickets next, and a Big Willie's gift card and topical trivia. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right. 4 sneak preview tickets to Now You See Me, Now You Don't at Megaplex at Valley Fair. If you can answer this trivia question, 877-353-0700. Utah Mammoth back in action against Toronto. Who is their current points leader in this 2025-2026 NHL season? Which Mammoth man is leading the team in points? 877-353-0700. If you have the correct answer, we will give you Now You See Me, Now You Don't tickets and a Big Willie's gift card at 1717 South Main. Sean O'Connell Show coming to an end. The Drive with Spence Checketts is next. He's here in studio. Hey, Spence.
I'll tell you what, been in my car a lot today, driving around. You've done a good job, you and James, of talking through these scenarios. I'm not saying I called it, but I know the listeners probably are sick of me continuing to talk about all these advanced metrics that really like Utah. But if the committee was actually going to utilize the criteria and data points that they told us they were going to, there was a chance Utah was going to be 13 or 14, right? And I'm watching that with bated breath, and then 17 comes up. I'm like, oh, 16, 15, 14. I'm like, holy smokes, 13. It opens up so many possibilities. It actually says the committee values the Big 12 in a way we didn't think they were going to, because they value Brigham Young and they value Texas Tech and make Saturday in Lubbock massive.
Huge.
And there's a chance that Utah doesn't even qualify for the Big 12 championship game and backdoors their way into the CFP. Like, that is not off the table at all.
There's an argument to be made that that is actually the path of least resistance to get into the college football playoff. Now, it is dependent on other results, whereas if you can backdoor your way into the Big 12 championship game and win that, you don't have to worry about, did Iowa beat Oregon? Is USC now threatening? What's going on in the ACC? Obviously, the guaranteed bid is the bid you should hope for if you can get it. But, I mean, if you can win 3 games big and convince this committee that they were right about you in their first college football playoff ranking, then you've made a case. And that's more than I thought you'd be able to say heading into the first week of this evaluation.
No, I was almost giddy excited when I saw 13 and Utah's name next to it, because, there's so many compelling storylines the rest of the way. Namely, if this is Kyle's last dance, how nice would it be for him to be able to do the thing that we all believe he's always wanted to do, but has not been able to do because of a number of different reasons. When he had his best teams, the BCS was not home for a Mountain West Conference school. And then, winning the Pac-12 before the expansion, like, there just has not been the cosmic alignment for Utah football when they were at their best to get this opportunity. And look, it is far from a done deal. To your point, there are certain things that have to go down. Like, I wonder what would happen if BYU goes to Lubbock and smokes Tech, smokes them. And then they handle their business the rest of the way, and they see Tech again as a 2-loss team and smokes Tech again. And then Tech is sitting there with 3 losses, 1 in the conference championship game. Utah handles their business. Do BYU and Utah get in even though Tech went to the conference championship game?
Well, I think if BYU smokes Tech and hands them their second conference loss, then Utah wins that tiebreaker.
Oh, yeah. Then the conference so head-to-head is 1, right? And then it's conference winning percentage as far as the teams that you beat. There is this website, I think I showed it to you, where you can plug it in. And unless the website is incorrect, if the favorites win the rest of the way, and that never happens in college football.
No.
But if the favorites win the rest of the way, according to this website, Utah does gain access to the Big 12 championship game. And look, dude, you probably know better than anybody. Utah's got to be chomping at the bit to get BYU again on a neutral field.
It would be a glorious, glorious thing. I don't know for that to be the conference championship game in Kyle Whittingham's final year.
Mm-hmm.
And look, Utah is right now, knock on wood, they're healthier than BYU is. They're playing just as well, if not better, and more convincingly than BYU is. They all want it. We all want it. I'm not even going to hold my breath, but it is a possibility. The thing is, you have to handle your business first.
Yep.
And this Utah football team does not have gimme games ahead of them. Baylor, Kansas State, Kansas, that is, you don't know which version of those teams you're going to get. If you get the good version of all 3 of them, that's a really, really tough stretch. If you get kind of like Baylor, what's wrong with you today? You're going to smash them.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas State, I think, they match up well with Utah. I think that's a tough game no matter what. And then Kansas, kind of the same with Baylor. Like, the best version of Kansas can beat you. The worst version of Kansas will give you 70 points and score 6.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't allowed the Big 12 media poll this year, but if you looked at most of the conference projections, those three teams were in, I'll say, the top half of the conference projections. None of them picked to win the thing. K-State may have been a top 3 or 4 pick for some. But the complicated thing is style points are going to matter here. Like, the best case scenario for Utah is to really leave no doubt, the way you did with Colorado, the way you did with Arizona State, the way you did with Cincinnati. Like a 17-16 win over Baylor, unfortunately, I don't think is going to do. You know, like, you have to hang 30-40 on them, hold them to 1 or 2 scores. So, and the main reason, outside of just eye test style points, is if you dig into FPI and S&P Plus, the two metrics I've been talking about for 3 weeks, every single day. I think the reason that they really love Utah the way they love Utah is they've just been stomping teams, not just squeaking by. And I think one of the reasons why they don't love BYU the way they love Utah is BYU has close games against Colorado and Arizona. And yes, winning matters, period. End of story. Head-to-head matters. Winning matters. But these metrics do look at whether or not you were able to smash teams you were supposed to smash. And there have been a few very tenuous moments for BYU, like how good is Iowa State? That's a good win in their building because they don't lose there very often. Colorado's not good. Right? Arizona's not near what we thought they would be. And in all three of those games, BYU was able to get it done, which is the bottom line. But these metrics don't necessarily respect, close wins over bad teams. And that's why Utah has to keep their foot on the gas. These metrics like Utah because they've been smoking the teams they're supposed to beat.
There are 4 teams in the country that have a top 10 scoring offense, and a top 10 scoring defense. Mm-hmm. It's Utah and Indiana and Oregon and Texas Tech.
There you go. Yeah.
Nobody is debating whether or not Indiana, Oregon, and Texas Tech deserve to be in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's like, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
If they do what they're supposed to do, those are playoff teams. So it's there. It's there for the taking, Utah.
There's a chance, man. There's a chance, and I feel much better today than I did yesterday.
This committee has told you,
yep,
and the rest of the Big 12, we like what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Keep it up, kids.
Yep. Utah was favored over both BYU and Texas Tech, if I remember correctly, right? Utah's been favored, I think, in every game this season. And I think I said at the start of the year, that was my anticipation, meaning if you just handle your business, do what you're supposed to do, things are going to fall into place. And it's pretty exciting that even though a couple of things got loose for you, you're still right there. I mean, we're moving into mid-November, and you still have a shot. I mean, if you're a college football fan, that's all you can ask for your team.
And by the way, we haven't talked about it much today, but if you're a BYU fan right now, you are wetting yourself with excitement.
Soaking yourself with excitement, maybe? That was too easy.
We'll leave it at that.
Just teed it up.
Sean O'Connell Show's done. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.